Chapter 688. Uncle Master I Ching. Seeing that Shu Yi was trying to sow discord, Yu Luan reminded anxiously, "Don't listen to her nonsense. She's doing this on purpose to stir up a fight in the sect. Don't fall for her tricks." "So what if she's doing it on purpose?" Shu Yi laughed coldly, as if he was not afraid of them knowing. With a turn of his hand, a sharp black blade appeared and held it against Xin Ying's neck. "Do you really want to watch her die in my hands?" With that said, the blade in his hand moved closer to Xin Ying's neck. Two Bucks was face paled. He said hurriedly, "Don't hurt Miss Shen. Don't you want to kill me? Just do it. Why implicate the innocent?" Yu Luan looked at him in surprise, but Two Bucks was stepped forward and continued, "Let me exchange with Miss Shen. I will definitely not resist." Disciple nephew Zhua. Not only Yu Luan, the other nascent soul-perfected ones could not help but speak up, their expressions conflicted. What I want is not just your life alone." Shu Yi ignored his suggestion. Her cold gaze swept across the crowd, her expression becoming increasingly sinister. "What I want is the life of everyone in Gui Yi sect." Yu Luan's expression changed, but he could not think of a way to save her. He could only ask the person beside him, "Uncle Master I Ching?" That was his master after all. When they turned to look, they realized that compared to how anxious they were, I Ching and Lone Moon seemed a little too calm. Perhaps they were hiding it too well. There was not a hint of nervousness on their faces. He was just about to speak when Shu Yi could not wait any longer. She threatened again, "If you don't do it, I'll kill her immediately." Lone Moon then replied calmly, "There's no need to wait. Go ahead and kill her." "Try killing her?" Zhua Shuming, Yu Luan, everyone, what happened to their good relationship? This was different from what they imagined. Even Shu Yi was stunned. After a while, she became even more furious, glaring at the two of them. "Do you think I don't dare?" Once he finished speaking, he tightened his grip on the knife in his hand. The sharp black blade instantly pressed into Xin Ying's neck. It looked like it was about to draw blood. Zhua Shuming, "No!" Everyone, "No!" Everyone's faces turned even paler as they cried out in alarm. Shen Ying stopped chewing on her fruit. She looked at the sharp blade in front of her and rolled her eyes. Yes, it was necessary to cooperate with such a tense atmosphere. Thus, he opened his mouth and said one word at a time emotionlessly, as if he was reciting from a book. "Ah, it's so scary, help." The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. The spirit chi he was about to release dissipated completely. "Ayaya, Father Nyo, I'm so scared. Prepare a ransom of tens of millions to save me." Lone Moon. King Retard. I Ching. Should he help or not? This question is so difficult, I don't know how to answer it. Father Nyo, shut up. Do you think I'm blind? The blade on your neck is already bent, okay? Can't you be a little more sincere when you're asking for help? Can't you be a little more nervous and emotional? Do you think I'm chanting? Also, don't even think about increasing your allowance. Yu Luan looked back and forth at the few of them. He felt that something was wrong. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon, I Ching, sect master. Lone Moon frowned. He took a step forward and said, "I think you should return to the sect and look after Tianji. There are many fiendish cultivators there, in case anything happens." Yu Luan was stunned. He glanced at Shu Yi and then at I Ching, who had been silent all this while. But this? Was he just going to ignore it? "Don't worry, it's fine." He looked up at the sky and deliberately raised his voice. "It's going to be lunchtime soon." Shen Ying, who was addicted to acting, was indeed stunned. Her expression turned serious. She changed her emotionless tone and called out seriously, "Chef." "Yes, master." I Ching nodded. Without the slightest scruple about the situation in front of him, he turned around and plunged into the kitchen without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, there was the sound of chopping vegetables. Shen Ying did not forget to turn around and add another sentence. "Make a fish for lunch. I want it braised." "Yes, master, no problem, master." Zhua Shuming, Shu Yi, everyone. What was going on? Weren't they going to rescue the hostages first? Why did they suddenly start cooking? Are you guys messing with me? Shu Yi was so angry that her face began to contort. Demonic chi surged out of her body again. She directly grabbed at Zhuo Shuming's direction. Instantly, a wave of demonic chi attacked him. It looked like it was going to entangle him. Lonmun's expression darkened. He activated a bit of god power and waved his sword. Instantly, a wave of sword chi directly slashed towards the demonic chi. With a swoosh, that black demonic chi instantly disappeared completely. The remaining force of the sword chi even counterattacked the other party. Shu Yi was caught off guard and was injured by the huge sword chi. She grabbed Xin and retreated a few steps before she could barely stand. She looked at Lonmun in disbelief. You're also at the soul formation stage. Lonmun frowned. He could not be bothered to pretend anymore. He directly activated his cultivation to the soul formation stage. In an instant, the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator pressed down on the other party. Zhuo Shuming and Yu Luan's companions were stunned. They all turned to look at Lonmun. Brother Lonmun. Zhuo Shuming was stunned. After a while, he reacted. No wonder whether it was chi refinement, foundation establishment, or even after he formed his core. Every time he practiced with the sword, he could not last more than 2 moves against him. So he was a soul formation supremacy from the start. Yu Luan also reacted. No wonder Uncle Master Tian Yi was so interested in a foundation establishment disciple. Could it be that he already knew Lonmun's identity? You've actually been hiding your cultivation all along. Despicable indeed. Shu Yi glared at Lonmun. Her gaze was full of hatred. So he had been hiding by Zhuo Shuming's side all along. No wonder her plans always failed. The more she thought about it, the more hatred she felt. As if she thought of something, a red light flashed in her eyes. The demonic chi on her body became thicker. She glanced at Xin who was chewing on her fruit again. She laughed mockingly. Indeed, you're just a mortal. You're useless. But even if I Ching doesn't make a move, I can still destroy your Gui Yi sect. Yu Luan could hear the meaning in her words. His heart tightened. What do you mean? Shu Yi smiled even more happily. Do you think I've done nothing apart from allying with the demon sect all these years in Heavenly Fiend sect? Zhuo Shuming paled. What else do you want to do? The demonic chi on Shu Yi's body suddenly started to increase. Her entire body was enveloped by demonic chi. Even the sky darkened. In an instant, the wind blew and the clouds moved. The ground shook. The spirit herbs on the originally lush ground withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, the entire mountain turned yellow. There seemed to be a huge object breaking out of the ground. It brought with it a refreshing chill. It twisted like a living thing. This is a spirit meridian? Yu Luan looked at the black object in disbelief. But it was clearly demonic chi. Could it be demonic source? Lonmun blurted out. Immortal cultivators had spirit meridians. Fiendish cultivators naturally had demonic sources. Everyone gasped. They suddenly recalled the array that Shu Yi had set up at the foot of the mountain. It looked like a binding array. But the demonic chi was obviously directed towards the ground. So she did not set up the array casually. She took the opportunity to convert the spirit meridian in the mountain into a demonic source. Then she purposely came to the mountain peak to hold Miss Shen hostage. Could it be that she was trying to buy time so that she could convert the demonic source? Shu Yi's eyes turned cold. She said word by word, I want all of you to die. Chapter 689. As soon as Shu Yi's voice fell, the surrounding devil chi became even more turbulent and spread out layer by layer. In an instant, the surroundings became dark. Not good, the devil chi is about to enter the other peaks. A nascent soul elder cried out in alarm. He pointed at the surrounding devil chi and said anxiously. Everyone's expression changed as they realized that the demonic chi around them was getting thicker and thicker. It looked like the demonic chi was about to seep out of the nameless peak and head towards the other peaks. They were able to stand in the demonic chi because of Lonmun's array formation. If the demonic chi were to spread, the disciples of the sect would probably supremacy. Lonmun? Yu Luan could only look towards Lone Moon for help. Don't leave the formation. At the same time, he conjured a seal with both hands. In an instant, a white array appeared around Nameless Mountain, sealing the demonic chi within the mountain tightly. Before everyone could heave a sigh of relief, Shu Yi sneered. Unnecessary. She did not seem to care about the obstruction at all and directly called out to the system in her mind. 001. Hurry up and fix the heavenly demon formation now. Host, do you really want to complete this array now? Nonsense. Shu Yi snorted coldly. If you don't summon the demons, how are you going to kill Zhou Shuming and this group of people from Guiyi sect? Didn't I go to the heavenly demon sect to get this magic tool? But directly connecting to the demon realm is forbidden by the rules. It will be discovered by the heavenly law of this world. Don't you have a way to temporarily block the detection of the heavenly Tao? She still stubbornly said, let it not find out first. By the time it finds out, we will have already left this world. Host, this function can only be used for a short period of time, and all your points will be cleared. But Shu Yi gritted her teeth and urged, no matter what, I must kill them today. Ding. Repair complete. Shu Yi then took out an item and tossed it into the air. In the next moment, a huge array suddenly appeared above them. It shone with a strange red light, as if something was about to break out of the array. What is this? Yu Luan's eyes widened. It was an array that he had never seen before. However, there was a sinister aura that made people feel uncomfortable. Just a glance at it was enough to cause his mind to become unsteady and his blood to surge. Lone Moon took a closer look at the array and his eyes flashed with shock. It really was a heavenly demon formation? There was actually someone in the lower realm who knew how to set up this formation. Wasn't this something that only demons with sky demon cultivation could set up? Wasn't this? He took a closer look and found that there seemed to be something extra in the formation. It was not an ordinary heavenly demon formation. You think you can really seal my demonic chi? Shu. Shu Yi looked at everyone with a confident expression. Her eyes, which were originally filled with murderous intent, became even colder. She laughed loudly and said, I'm not the only one you have to deal with. What do you mean by that? Yu Luan's heart sank. He was even more wary of the formation in the sky. Shu Yi sneered, do you know why the heavenly demon sect is called this? That's because they've produced devils who have truly ascended to immortality. This formation is the most precious treasure of the heavenly devil sect that has been lost for a long time. It can connect directly to the devil world and summon the ancient devils to the world. What? Everyone's faces paled. Summoning the ancient devil race? Was Shu Yi crazy? This would destroy the entire mortal world. Shu Yi smiled even more proudly and said word by word, none of you can escape. The moment she finished, the array in the sky shone with a blinding red light. Countless talismans started to move, as if they were going to come to life in the next second. Indeed, after a while, there was a loud bang. A huge black stone door appeared above the red array. The heavy black color seemed to be devouring all the light around it. This is... Zhou Shuming's eyes widened in disbelief. He had only taken one look at the huge door that had suddenly appeared in midair. For a moment he felt a chill spreading throughout his body. All the meridians in his body seemed to be freezing inch by inch. His cultivation was unstable, and even his golden core looked like it was about to shatter. What are you looking at? Lone Moon reached out and grabbed Zhou Shuming. He threw him into the array. He conjured a seal with one hand and added a few more layers of protection to block the suppressive force outside. Supremacy Lone Moon, what is that? Yu Luan and the others were shocked. Lone Moon's expression darkened. Then he replied, demonic sect. But why did they appear here? Before everyone could be shocked, they heard a creak. The door suddenly opened. At the same time, demonic chi that was 100 times thicker than Shu Yi's surged out. The suppressive force covered the sky. It was as if the entire mountaintop was going to be crushed. After so many years, there's still someone who can summon me? A cold male voice sounded. A figure appeared in front of the demon door. He was dressed in a black robe. Demonic chi surrounded him. There was also a thick smell of blood. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. They immediately understood that this was a real devil. Lone Moon also frowned. A sky fiend actually appeared. The sky demon raised his hand, and the Dharma artifact that Shu-Yi had just thrown out flew into his palm. He looked down and seemed to confirm something. It's indeed the sky fiend's seal that I left behind. I didn't think that a cultivator from the lower realm could summon this seal. A hint of joy flashed in his eyes. But his gaze was still cold. He looked down and said, "Who was the one who repaired this sky fiend's seal? I can promise her one thing. It's me." Shu-Yi's face lit up. The ancient books of the Sky Fiend sect were right. This array could allow the Sky Fiend to descend. She did not expect that there would be a surprise. He could promise her one thing. So she answered loudly without thinking. "Supremacy, I was the one who repaired this array. Please help me get rid of Guiyi sect." "Oh." The Sky Fiend's eyes darkened. He turned to look in Shu-Yi's direction. In a flash, he landed in front of the demon door and walked toward her. With every step he took, the demonic chi on his body increased. The demonic chi on Shu-Yi's body retreated a little. It was as if she was threatened. The Sky Fiend's eyes lit up. As he walked, he said, "You want me to kill these mortals?" Shu-Yi nodded heavily. Her body, which was originally shrouded in demonic chi, was slowly revealed. The Sky Fiend laughed softly. His eyes were full of murderous intent. "Good. Then this noble one will do as you say." He suddenly paused halfway through his words. His eyes, which were originally filled with mischief, suddenly widened to the size of copper bells, as if he had seen something shocking. He stared straight at Shu-Yi's direction, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth suddenly turned into a string of sounds. So. After a long while, he still couldn't say the last word. His entire body even began to tremble like a sieve. Supremacy? Shu-Yi was stunned. In the next moment, the Sky Fiend shook violently, as if he had been awakened. Then his legs turned to jelly. Without hesitation, he knelt down in front of Shu-Yi, who was grabbing Shening. There was a loud thud. The entire demon city was almost pressed against the ground. It was a perfect demonstration of what it meant to be prostrated on all fours. This little demon greets exalted goddess. Shu-Yi, Shening, everyone, what the hell? For all? Chapter 690. Who are you? Shening took a bite of her fruit and had no choice but to answer. Exalted goddess, I'm Little San. The Sky Fiend looked up and pointed to his face. The Little San in King Little Black's house? What Little San? Did you Hong know? The Sky Fiend added, Sky Fiend number 3, Little San, is that the name that Exalted Goddess gave me? Lone Moon, Shening, you should have said you were one of the 10 Sky Fiends. Lone Moon turned and glared at a certain someone. Who asked you to give me random nicknames? Exalted Goddess? Shu-Yi had a bad feeling about this. He could not help but look at the obedient Sky Fiend with some panic. Didn't you promise to help me destroy the entire Guiyi sect? Don't talk nonsense. The Sky Fiend knelt down as if he was about to explode. He was going to die. What nonsense was he spouting in front of the Exalted Goddess? What entire sect? Who wants to destroy what entire sect? Don't frame a demon. I'm a good demon. Ever since the immortal and demon realms merged, I've been responding to the Exalted Goddess's call. We've been harmonious, friendly, civilized, helping each other. I haven't done anything bad. I even went to the invincible heavenly palace yesterday and followed my king to escort immortal pills to various continents. I've been on duty once a month. I haven't slacked off at all. But... Shu-Yi looked confused. He blurted out, It's the Sky Fiend's seal that I restored. What's wrong with that? Who told you to do it? The Sky Fiend did not dare to admit it. He hurriedly explained, We didn't give you immortal stones. You did it out of boredom. It's my fault. I'm not even close to you. Don't try to scam me, I'm telling you. Shu-Yi was completely stunned. Was this really a Sky Fiend? The little San kowtowed to Shen Ying once more. He said word by word, "Exalted goddess. Exalted goddess, believe me. I may look evil, but I'm innocent." He thought for a moment and added, "It's all the fault of the other sky fiends from the demon palace. The demon sect suddenly appeared. They cheated and caused me to lose. That's why they pushed me down. I really didn't want this." He cried louder and louder. The louder he got, the more aggrieved he felt. He was just short of tears and snot. "Exalted goddess, this really has nothing to do with me. Back when the immortal and demonic realms merged into one, we have thoroughly investigated all the remaining demonic sects in the world and recovered all of them. Because this heavenly demon seal was damaged, it could not be touched at all, and no one in the lower realm could repair it. It was Demon King Little Black who said that there was no need to care about this, so he didn't go down to the lower realm to retrieve it. Exalted goddess, Little Black Demon King made me do it. He was an innocent demon. Shen Ying, Lone Moon, everyone, if this demon was afraid, would it even betray its superior?" On the other side, a series of electronic voice transmissions sounded in Shu Yi's ears, as if it was the final verdict. Ding. Original owner's resentment +5. Ding. The resentment value had reached 100. Mission failed. Ding. The heavenly axiom has detected this and is preparing to forcibly break away from this world. Host, please be prepared. 10, 9, 8. A strong sense of indignation flashed across Shu Yi's eyes. There was no time to sort out the current situation. She could only glare at Swishuming, full of murderous intent. In the next moment, she felt her vision go black and she lost consciousness. And in the eyes of Lone Moon and the others, they saw a flash of green characters that looked like codes on Shu Yi's soul. The invader's black primary soul that was stuck in Shu Yi's body like a sandwich was forcibly extracted from her soul and then flew towards the demonic gate in the sky. Shu Yi's body fell to the ground without warning, but the original primary soul in her body did not return. Seeing that the system was about to escape, Lone Moon hurriedly called out to remind Chef. I Ching, who was originally still in the kitchen, instantly appeared in the sky above the demonic gate. With a wave of his hand, the demonic gate closed directly, disappearing along with the passageway that connected to the demonic realm. Then, he summoned a sword array to trap the object that seemed to be made up of codes. As if knowing that it could no longer enter the demonic gate, the system suddenly glowed with green light. Nobody knew what it did, but it actually penetrated through Chef's sword array and rushed towards the ground. Lone Moon was shocked and immediately reacted. "It wants to enter the river of forgetfulness." He turned to stop it, but Shen Ying, who was originally still opposite him, suddenly reached out and pulled him. "What?" Lone Moon panicked. "Wait." Shen Ying replied, not at all anxious. Anyway, she continued to leisurely take a bite of her fruit. "Wait for what?" "It wants to escape through the river of forgetfulness." The system wanted to enter the demonic gate and return to the immortal realm through it. It did not know that the gap had been sealed, so it wanted to escape through the original path outside the invincible heavenly palace. Chef sealed the demonic gate, so it wanted to directly punch a hole through the river of forgetfulness in the lower realm. Shit! It's already in! The moment Lone Moon stopped, the system had already rushed underground, straight into the river of forgetfulness. Lone Moon's heart tightened. It wants to escape. He paused mid-sentence, only to realize that the system that had rushed into the river of forgetfulness, which was originally covered in green light, suddenly dimmed under the golden power of the original source. The entire green ball of light began to tremble, as if it was about to collapse. It looked like it was about to disintegrate. In the center of the green light, a wisp of white soul floated out slowly. One could vaguely make out the shadow of Shu Yi. This was the original soul of the original owner of the body that was extracted by the system, the real Shu Yi. It was finally separated. The invader did not complete the original source of her heart, so she naturally did not want to leave with the system. In addition, under the scouring of the original source of the river of forgetfulness, the system naturally could not lock this wisp of soul. This all happened very quickly. In the blink of an eye, The original owner's soul had already returned to the river of forgetfulness. But the system did not stop. After spitting out the original soul, it forcefully tore a plain opening from the river of forgetfulness with the black soul of the invader. It's done! Shen Ying threw the fruit in her hand, her figure flashed, and then she jumped towards the river of forgetfulness. Lone Moon looked up at Chef in the air, and hurriedly followed. In a flash, the three of them disappeared on the spot. The people who could not see the system at all, and could not see the river of forgetfulness as well as a certain demon. What was going on? What exactly happened just now? Why did Shu Yi suddenly stop breathing and collapse? Moreover, how did those three people disappear? Everyone could only turn to look at Zhuo Shuming, the only person who was usually close to them. I don't know either. Zhuo Shuming looked confused. Were all soul formation supremacies so mysterious? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Then, they saw a certain demon kneeling obediently on the ground with a pure and kind look on his face. Speaking of which, this was definitely a fake sky fiend, right? For some reason, Yu Luan's originally full of fear had now disappeared completely. He mustered up his courage and could not help but say, this? Fellow Taoist, I don't know when the three supremacies will return, why don't you follow me to the main hall for a cup of tea? After all, he did not seem to have the intention to fight. Peace was the most important. No! Little Three hurriedly shook his head like a rattle drum and said with a determined expression, Exalted Goddess hasn't told me to get up yet? How can I get up by myself? I'm a sensible demon, don't you think of lying to me? The corner of Yu Luan's mouth twitched, so he changed his words. Why don't I send you the tea? You can kneel and drink it, right? All right. Little Three then nodded. Remember to put more tea leaves. Refreshing. He could kneel for another 500 years. Yu Luan, Zhuo Shuming, everyone, MD. Chapter 691. The moment Shen Ying and company entered the river of forgetfulness, they saw that a white crack had appeared around the system in front of them. It looked like it was about to tear the plane apart. Chef's heart stirred. Immediately, the power of the original source in the surroundings gathered towards the system, blocking its path. I Ching waved his hand. Huge amounts of nomological power surged towards the system, wrapping around it. It grew tighter and tighter. It looked like it was about to be controlled. The green coat around the system started to twist. Even its light dimmed. It seemed to be unstable. A much weaker electronic voice rang out again. Beep beep. Special situation. Identity exposed. Attacked by Heavenly Tao. Attacked. Beep beep. Activating final self-protection level. Devouring backup energy. Activating devouring charging. A scream rang out from the system. The black primary soul that was originally wrapped up by the system's green light started to struggle violently. 001, what are you doing? It hurts. Let go of me. Vote. Before Shu could finish his sentence, the entire black soul body had already disappeared. Meanwhile, the system emitted an even brighter green light than before, as though it had mobilized all of its energy. In an instant, it broke through the suppression of the power of the natural order, and with a kacha sound, it opened up a gap above the river of forgetfulness and drilled out. Chef, what are you doing? Lone Moon turned to look at I Ching in shock. You can't even stop this? I Ching frowned. He did not reply. Instead, he turned to look at Shen Ying, confused. Master, why did you? Although the system had devoured a different soul and its power had increased by 10 times, it was indeed nothing in front of him. Shen Ying had suddenly pulled him back. Shen Ying responded. Without explaining, she took out a familiar-looking blue box and patted it. It was the parenting system from before. Hey, stop playing landlord for a while. Point me the way. All right, big boss. The blue box flew up. The parenting system, which had been displaying a row of poker cards, retracted its cards. The little box turned back into a pair of familiar cartoon eyes. Signal source confirmed. The target is escaping to the chaotic region of SBSBSB 155. 23. Shen Ying then grabbed the parenting system back in her hands. She waved her hand and opened the plane gate. Turning back to look at the two, she said, "Let's go. We're going to its nest." The two of them? They looked at each other. Winky face. Only then did he remember that 001 seemed to be just a subsystem. He didn't know what was behind it. Was Xin planning to catch them all at once? But since when did the parenting system become so powerful? Even after 001 escaped from the realm, it was still able to track him down. It was completely different from the previous system that would freeze every time it tried to attack. Xin, however, had already turned and walked into the plain passage. The two of them exchanged a look and turned to repair the hole in the river of forgetfulness before following her. Almost in the blink of an eye, their vision turned black and they immediately entered a space of nothingness. There was nothing around them, even the ground under their feet had disappeared. This is chaos? Lone Moon was stunned. This was the first time he had come to the legendary chaos space. In the past, even when he left his own plane, he only traveled between planes. The chaos was a primordial region outside of all the planes. It was boundless, and no one knew how big it was. There was nothing in it. It didn't even have the concept of time and space. It was a completely different place from the void. Lone Moon subconsciously looked at his own palms. Was he imagining things? Logically speaking, their powers came from their own plane. Why did it feel like they were stronger now that they were in the chaos space? Before he could think about it, the parenting system suddenly flashed and gave a warning. Reporting Big Boss. There are traces of intruders 500 meters ahead. They focused and indeed, there was a flash of white light not far away. A familiar green ball of system rushed out of the white light. It seemed to have just broken through the plane and arrived. They didn't expect it to be one step slower than them. I Ching's eyes and hands were sharp. He immediately conjured a seal to hide the figures of the three of them. As soon as the system came out, it flew to the right. The three of them exchanged a look and quietly followed it. The parenting system flew in front of them, very obsequiously guiding them. The bad system ahead has turned right 200 meters away. The bad system ahead has hit a chaos flowstone 300 meters away. Please take care to avoid it. The bad system ahead has increased its speed. Lone Moon, I Ching, Xin. Lone Moon couldn't help but send a voice transmission. Since when did this parenting system have a navigation function? Did you intend to let 001 out of the plane right from the start? No wonder she wasn't anxious at all. That's right. Shen nodded as she dug out the fruit. Once and for all. Otherwise, it will think that we're in a rabbit's nest. It dug holes everywhere. She might as well get rid of it all at once. Then this. Lone Moon wanted to ask in detail. It's gone. I Ching suddenly stopped and looked in front of him, a little confused. Lone Moon paused and looked up. Indeed, the 001 system that was flying in front of them just now had disappeared. There was only darkness around them. What's going on? Why did it suddenly disappear? They were following closely. They were less than 500 meters away. They shouldn't have lost it. I don't know either. It suddenly disappeared. Chef shook his head. Even the parenting system let out a series of anxious noises. Big Boss, the target has disappeared. The target has disappeared. It didn't disappear. Shen Ying replied. She frowned and took a step forward. She raised her right hand and touched something in front of her. It was as if she touched something. The originally black space suddenly rippled like the surface of a lake with a stone thrown into it. The scenery in front of him changed, and in an instant, it changed into another scene. The two of them stared at it and couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. What was this? They saw that behind the ripples, there was a huge object floating in the air. Its entire body was covered in green fluorescent light. There were characters that looked like codes all over its body. Countless long and thin tentacles extended from its body. They extended in all directions. Every tentacle was wriggling. They could faintly see balls of different colored souls gathering in the center through those tentacles. That thing was huge. They couldn't see its exact size. They couldn't tell what it was. It looked like a plane tree, but it didn't have the aura of an original source. From time to time, one or two systems like 001 would stop at the end of those complicated tentacles. They would put the primary souls that they captured into the tentacles and then leave. There were many of those systems. They were like busy worker bees. And this was the hive. Chapter 692. Reporting, Big Boss. Target main system discovered. Lone Moon took a closer look at the huge object in front of him. He could faintly sense that the other party's energy was no weaker than that of a manager's. It was just that it was very messy, not as pure as a manager's. It seemed to be a patchwork of energy, and the strongest energy was at the very center of the nest. There are so many subsystems, what do we do now? Lone Moon suggested subconsciously. Should we find an entrance and sneak in? This main system would have some sort of switch, right? Why sneak in? Shening tilted her head and asked seriously. Nonsense, what do we do if we don't sneak in? The core of the main system was clearly in the innermost part of this thing. Can't we just kill it? Huh. Lone Moon was stunned. Before he could react, he saw Xin Ying's figure flash, instantly appearing beside one of the system's tentacles. She reached out and grabbed that thick tentacle. Wait, what are you doing? Holy shit, you really did it. In an instant, the countless subsystems that were originally busy suddenly stopped in unison, as if someone had pressed the pause button. With a whoosh, they all aimed at him. The originally green subsystems all turned red with a whoosh, as if countless pairs of densely packed red eyes had opened. Indeed, in the next moment, there was a series of beeping alarms. Shining. Lone Moon felt a chill in his heart. Just as he was about to pull her back, he saw her grab the tentacle with one hand and pull hard. There was a loud crack and a blinding flash of light. That huge tentacle was forcibly pulled down by her. The entire huge main system began to writhe, waving countless other tentacles and attacking them. Even the subsystems that were like worker bees also gathered in this direction, densely packed and overwhelming. Shining, however, still looked half dead and half alive. She directly grabbed the tentacle in her hand, like a whip, turned around and waved her hand at the impenetrable subsystem. A series of rumbling explosions could be heard. There was a burst of colorful light in front of them. Large patches of tentacles and subsystems exploded, scattering in all directions. But the tentacle whip in Xin Ying's hand did not stop. Instead, it followed the momentum and directly swung towards the main body of the main system behind her. Then there was a loud bang. The gigantic object, which could not be seen clearly at first glance, was instantly pushed back. Then, with a few cracking sounds, a huge crack appeared on the body of the main system. The crack ran through the entire sphere from top to bottom, and a large number of foreign incomplete souls that had not yet turned into origins swarmed out from within and fled in all directions. He could even faintly see the shining core in the innermost area. All right, there's no need to hide anymore, Shining said. Lone Moon, I Ching, oh, of *CK. What kind of violent cheat was this? Sure enough, in front of a cheat, all villains were paper tigers. Xin Ying's actions seemed to have broken something. The entire main system began to tremble and emit a series of strange electronic sounds. Even the countless subsystems began to flee in all directions. Lone Moon's heart sank. Only then did he react. He turned to I Ching and said, "Chef, stop these systems. They must not be allowed to invade other planes, otherwise there would be endless trouble." I Ching also reacted immediately. In a flash, he retreated to the side. In the next moment, a fiery wall of fire appeared in an instant, heading in the direction of the escaping subsystems. There was a series of crackling sounds, and all the systems that crashed into the wall of fire were turned into ashes. The wall of fire grew taller and taller. In a moment, it had become a sea of fire. Because this area was really too wide, in order to block off all the exits, even Chef had no choice but to transform into his original phoenix form, turning into a huge fire phoenix, controlling the true phoenix fire to form circles of fire walls, wrapping up the entire main system and the surroundings. Lone Moon also conjured an immortal sword. He waved his sword, and tens of them began to destroy the countless subsystems inside. Shen Ying, on the other hand, did not move. She looked up at the crack on the main system, and then looked at the chaotic mess of subsystems flying everywhere. Her eyes narrowed, and she pointed at the parenting system that was still floating beside her. Baby's system. Yes, boss. Please instruct me. Scan the energy levels of all the system terminals here. Yes, boss. No problem, boss. Scanning terminal. Discovered terminal plus 5 billion energy level is B. Detected abnormal energy. The energy level is over SSS. Reporting to boss. There's a problem. Mark it out. Boss. The parenting system made a beeping sound. A thin white line suddenly shot out from the blue square, pointing to a dark area in front of them on the right. There was a small green ball that looked similar to the other subsystems. In the next moment, a red arrow appeared on top of the system's head. Lone Moon, who was dealing with the system worker bees, immediately noticed the situation over there. He paused. What's this? The main body, Shining replied. The main systems? What? Lone Moon was stunned. He looked at the huge body in the middle, and then at the marked system. Suddenly he understood. It can move into these subsystems at will. Shining nodded. Holy shit. He cursed and spun the sword in his hand. Then he turned around and flew towards the marked system. The system did not have a physical body. It could only be bound to a soul. He should have known that the so-called main system did not have a physical body. That was why it could move between any of the subsystems. No wonder Shin-ing attacked it without saying a word. If they had really sneaked in, it might have moved before they could catch the main system. They had to get rid of all the systems from the start. So they might as well poke the hornet's nest and trap all the systems first. What's more, the main system's energy was quite shocking. It was no less than that of an ordinary manager. But after Shin-ing hit it, it seemed to have collapsed. Even the subsystems began to flee in all directions. Now that he thought about it, the main system might have done it on purpose. It knew that it could not defeat Shin-ing, so it created chaos and wanted to escape. Indeed, just as Lone Moon flew towards the marked system, the surrounding subsystems that were fleeing in all directions suddenly seemed to have received some order. They swarmed towards him, forming a green wall. It was as if they wanted to stop him from advancing. Lone Moon summoned his sword array. Thousands of immortal swords broke through the system's green wall. His body flashed towards the main system, and he slashed at the marked system. But before he could heave a sigh of relief, more subsystems appeared around him. Ding! The target has changed again. The parenting system's mark dimmed. It instantly appeared on top of another green ball a few feet away. It changed again. Good job, parenting system. Lone Moon was overjoyed. He had the urge to give it his salary. He turned and flew towards it. Chapter 693. With the parenting system's godly assistance, no matter how the main system moved, there would always be a mark above its head. What's more, Chef's wall of fire was getting tighter and tighter, and Lone Moon had set up several sword arrays inside. The hundreds of millions of subsystems around them were getting fewer and fewer. There were only a few left. The main system seemed to have sensed this. The mark above its head dimmed and disappeared. In the next moment, the huge body in the center with countless tentacles started to move again. Ding! Reporting to Big Boss, the target has returned to the initial terminal. The main system, which was as huge as a plane tree, suddenly emitted beams of piercing green light from its body. Like lasers, it swept toward the few of them. Everywhere it passed, even chaos was broken. There was even the chi of the source. It wants to use the original source it collected to attack us. Lone Moon was shocked. He turned toward I Ching, who was still controlling the wall of fire. Chef, quickly dodge these. No need. Shen-ing suddenly spoke. With that, her figure flashed and she appeared right in front of those beams of light. Just as all the beams were about to hit her body, Shen-ing raised her hand to block them. However, she merely raised her hand to block the attack. In an instant, the countless rays of green light bounced back as if they had hit a mirror. Then, with a few sizzling sounds, the smell of something burning wafted into the air. With a loud rumble, the main system, which already had a crack in it, broke into pieces. Its huge body was cut by its own green light, and countless cracks appeared, as if it was cracking. We can sneak in now. Shen Ying pointed at the biggest crack and said seriously. Lone Moon, I Ching, you're awesome. Fu *K, is this called sneaking in? This is freaking ripping. And it's the kind of ripping in the open and extremely arrogant way. Shen Ying, however, stepped forward and jumped into the center of the crack. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look and hurriedly followed. The moment they entered the crack, the scenery around them changed. All the darkness retreated, and a snow-white land appeared in front of them. It was white and empty. They could faintly feel a thick source of original source energy in front of them. Sure enough, in the next moment, a figure slowly appeared in front of him, slowly condensing into a human shadow. That person was floating in the air. He was dressed in black, and his eyes were cold. He looked at the three of them with an expressionless face. He did not speak, but a stiff voice rang out. Invaders from a low-level existential plane, how dare you provoke a chief god? You will pay the price of your souls. Intruder? Lone Moon looked at the person in the sky, amused. Aren't you the one who invades other planes everywhere? The person on the other side frowned, as if he was very angry. That stiff voice sounded again, but he ignored Lone Moon's sarcasm. You have already entered my chief god's space. No one can resist me. Sovereign space. Lone Moon was stunned. Could it be that it had intentionally lured them in? He subconsciously sensed his own plane, only to find that the plane that could be contacted at any time was now completely cut off. He was shocked, but before he could think, a series of electronic sounds rang out from the other side. Activation of original source energy successful. Preparing for soul extraction, extraction commencing. In the next moment, he felt a strong gust of wind sweep past, followed by a loud crashing sound. A huge amount of energy was pressing down on them. Lone Moon's heart sank, and he subconsciously tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. He felt that the energy was getting closer, closer and closer. Then, it swept past them, straight face, Lone Moon, Chef and the parenting system floating in front of Shen Ying were all standing where they were, perfectly fine. They did not feel any pressure at all, much less that their souls were being extracted. The three of them, what a frightening soul extraction, /____, extraction failed. Increase energy by 70%. Extraction commence. With a crashing sound, another wave of energy pressed down on them, and then, it swept past them again. The three of them did not move. Extraction failed. Increase energy by 90%. Extraction commence. Another wave of energy pressed down on them, and then, it swept past them again and again. The three of them were as still as dead dogs. Extraction failed. Increase energy by 100%. Extraction commencing. Are you done? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He could not help but open his mouth to retort. Brag? 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 What are you bragging about? Do you think you're an electric fan? He was wrong to think that this main system was so powerful. Yet he forgot that it was not even a manager. It was just a fake manager that stole some original source energy from different planes and then patched it up. With so much energy from so many different planes, it was already not bad that it could maintain a superficial level of compatibility. It actually wanted to extract the soul of an authentic manager. Of course, that was impossible. They reckoned that this guy probably didn't even know who they were. Unknown life form detected. Impossible to estimate. Impossible to estimate. The main system made a series of crashing sounds, as if the machine was stuck. Unknown life form that cannot be matched to any plane. What exactly are you? Lone Moon, I Ching, Shen Ying. So it really did not know? Oh, it was no wonder that 001, who invaded them previously, kept saying that it was afraid of being discovered by the heavenly Tao, but never mentioned anything about managers. So it did not know at all? Then what it said about the chief god's space earlier, was it just a bluff? The parenting system was right. This was indeed a low-level system. It deserved to be eliminated. Lone Moon's eyebrows furrowed. He sent a beam of sword chi over. The figure in the air shook like smoke and then dissipated. A phantom? I Ching frowned. He conjured a wind seal. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind rose. It was much stronger than the 3 soul-sucking winds that the main system created earlier. In the next moment, the white fog in front of them dissipated. The surroundings darkened again. A green light appeared in front of them. Countless green codes surrounded a colorful mixed source. The source energy was very thick, almost as thick as that of an ordinary plane source. It looked like this was the core of the main system. Xin Ying's eyes narrowed. She walked forward directly. Wait, don't touch the core. The electronic voice sounded again. Compared to the emotionless tone before, this time there was a hint of panic. I can create a physical body soon and become a powerful eternal life form. Don't destroy my core. Physical body? Lone Moon frowned. Eternal life forms aside, this fellow dug holes in all the planes to steal the source. So it was to obtain a physical body first? He turned to look at the little cube floating beside Xining. Speaking of which, was it that difficult to have a physical body? Winky face, stop. The main system was getting more and more panicked. Shen Ying walked closer and closer. Just as she was about to reach out and grab the source, she suddenly felt a weight on her hand. Someone grabbed her wrist. An unfamiliar male voice sounded beside her. Don't you think it's a pity to destroy such an interesting thing? Chapter 694. Master! I Ching's heart sank, and he flew over directly. Lone Moon was shocked too. Who are you? The man appeared too suddenly. They actually did not notice that there was someone else here, even Xining. The man turned back to look at the two. A cold look flashed in his eyes. The friendly and teasing expression just now suddenly became unapproachable. You still have 2 burdens with you, he said with a half-smile. Suddenly his eyes darkened, and something seemed to be released from his body in the direction of the 2. You're in the way. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed, her figure flashed, and she instantly retreated to I Ching and Lone Moon's side. The 2 of them had no time to react at all. They only felt that an invisible defense had been set up around them in an instant, and a few strange sounds whizzed past their ears. It was as if something terrifying had almost hit them, but Shen Ying had blocked it at the last moment. The 2's expression changed instantly. This completely defenseless, completely unfelt power. This was the first time they felt this from someone other than Xining. If Shen Ying did not return just now, perhaps the 2 of them would already be here. A sense of danger that they had never felt before immediately surged in their hearts. This man, who exactly was he? Master! I Ching's heart sank even more, subconsciously looking at Xining who was blocking in front of him. Before he had time to ask, Xining suddenly turned around, reached out and pushed his chest. I Ching was caught off guard and was pushed back by her. Along with Lone Moon, they fell to the ground. Instantly, a white light flashed in front of them, as if something opened instantly. It looked very familiar. This was the white light of the plane door. Master! Foodie! The 2 subconsciously exclaimed, but fell directly into the plane door that suddenly opened behind them, disappearing on the spot, only in time to see Xin Ying's face, a never-before-seen serious expression. In the next instant, the 2 were already sitting on the grass in the divine realm. Chef panicked, immediately climbed up, raised his hand, wanting to open the plane door again, but no matter how he conjured a seal, there was no reaction at all. Lone Moon hurriedly tried as well. It was the same situation. He turned to look at Chef, who was already frantic. It's no use. Shen Ying should have already sealed all the plane passages. We can't go back. Master! I Ching's expression turned even uglier. He thought of the man who had suddenly appeared and the attack that he could not detect at all. But she's in danger. We have to hurry back. Chef, calm down. Lone Moon held him back. Shen Ying didn't even inform us and sent us back so suddenly. She must have known from the start that it wasn't something we could handle. We wouldn't be able to help at all and might even implicate her. I Ching heaved a sigh of relief and calmed down. However, he looked even more flustered now. He clenched his fists tightly. But Master is alone. If we don't help her, who else can? Senior Jing. His eyes lit up and he turned to Lone Moon. Find Senior Jing. That person isn't simple. He's definitely not an ordinary manager. Senior Jing must know something. Lone Moon paused and then reacted. That's right. There's still Sister Jing. He hurriedly opened his wristband and connected to Shen Jing's communication device. After a while, his body stiffened and the light in his eyes dimmed. He said with some disbelief, Shening, she even blocked Sister Jing's communication device. Both of their faces turned pale. Shening blocked the plane because she knew that they were no match for that person. Then she blocked Sister Jing's communication device because even Shen Jing couldn't handle that person, at this time, in the chaos. A wise choice. The man looked at the place where Lone Moon and I Ching disappeared and raised his eyebrows at Shening. He returned to his slightly friendly and smiling expression. Given your status, it's most unsuitable for you to bring along these two burdens. Yet you keep bringing them along everywhere. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed and then swept a glance at the man. After a while, she slowly took out a fruit and took a bite. She replied, "Are you jealous?" "What?" The man was stunned, as if he did not expect her to reply this way. Shen Ying tilted her head and then continued. "I've seen many single dogs like you. I understand." "What do you understand? What's with this feeling of being looked down upon?" The man's mouth twitched and he sighed deeply. Then he shook his head and said, "There's no point in talking about these things." "Interesting." Shen Ying still nodded seriously. "After all, a single stray dog like you is fundamentally different from people like us who travel in luxurious groups. I can understand if you feel unbalanced." Understand my foot? What was with this urge to strangle the other party? He did not find out that she was such a person in his previous investigations. The man pressed his forehead and finally regained his senses. "Do you know who I am exactly?" Shening paused in the act of chewing on the fruit. After a while, she took another bite and said, "I'm the person who blocked the monitoring of the Heavenly Tao organization and let Mu Xiang return to her original plane. I'm also the person who specially let this system invade Chef's plane." The man's eyes narrowed and he looked at her with some surprise. "So you already knew. It seems that you do have some skills. It's not that I have good eyesight, it's that you're too obvious." Shening glanced at him and added, "I'm not blind." The man was not angry. He continued to smile and asked, "Then do you know why I did all this?" Shen Ying stared at the fruit in her hand and turned it to a side that was easier to eat. She slowly took a bite and then replied, "You're so bored." The man's smile froze again. The corner of his mouth twitched. He could no longer pretend to be kind. His expression turned cold and he said seriously and sternly, "That was my test for you. I wanted to see if you had the qualifications to take over my position." Shen Ying looked disinterested, as if she had no interest in his words at all. She threw away the core of the fruit in her hand and looked up at the main system that was pretending to be dead and moving backwards, trying to escape. She lifted her chin and said, "You want to stand up for it?" The man paused and subconsciously looked at the main system. He shook his head and said, "Don't misunderstand. I don't like this plain locust. Of course I won't help it. It's just that, oh, that's good." Shen Ying interrupted him and turned to continue walking towards the trembling main system. The man... Was she so impatient to deal with him? Chapter 695. The main system on the other side panicked and made a series of beeping sounds. Don't come over." The green code around the colorful original source started to flash crazily. It tried to stop Shen Ying from coming closer, but it was completely useless. Shen Ying walked over unimpeded. She reached out and grabbed the huge ball of mixed original source inside. "You'd better think carefully." The man spoke again as if he couldn't help but remind her anxiously, "This thing has the ability to enter any plane at will. Although it's rubbish, it has many eyes and ears. To me, or to you in the future, it will indeed be of some use. If you destroy it now, you won't have it in the future." Shen Ying turned to look at him. Her expression darkened, and she replied seriously, "Oh." As soon as she finished speaking, a huge wave of energy enveloped the ball of original source. Shen Ying clenched her fists. With a puff sound, The entire ball of origin seemed to have been crushed, scattering in all directions. The surrounding code clattered, and more than half of the surrounding code dimmed. Without the main system's restraint, the original source that had been forcibly mixed together separated and scattered, disappearing into the chaos. These were all original sources formed from the main soul. As long as the plane was not destroyed, one day it would be attracted back to its original plane by the original source of the plane. The man frowned, as if he was angry that she had destroyed the main system without hesitation. He looked at her with displeasure and said, "You really destroyed it. Actually, as long as you subdue it, you can naturally use it in the future." "No need." Shen Ying waved her hand. "Do." The man was speechless. As if thinking of something, he sighed and said, "This thing was carefully chosen by me. It will definitely be of use to you. Do you have any idea who we are?" "Judge." Shen Ying suddenly turned to look at him. The man was stunned. His eyes widened abruptly as he looked at her in shock. "You know." "Yes, I guessed it." She nodded. To be able to make the two monitors not detect an organization like the Big Tao organization for so many years, only the judge is stronger than the monitors. It was a simple choice. The man glanced at her in surprise. "Then how did you know about the existence of the Nephilic judge?" Even the supervisor did not know about the existence of the Nephilic judge, yet she was able to say these 3 words accurately. "You know that." Shen Ying had no intention of hiding anything. She said directly, "I once went into hibernation. At first, I thought it was because I had used too much energy. But when I woke up, I realized that my power had exceeded a certain limit. Even I couldn't feel where the limit of my energy was. From then on, the word trial would often appear in my consciousness. If I'm not mistaken, I should be a judge like you." "It's still too early to make a conclusion." The man's expression darkened. He looked straight at her and slowly smiled. Compared to the kindness he had shown before, there was a hint of coldness in his smile. "Do you know that judges can judge anyone in any plane or even the managers, including monitors? If managers are beings who control the heavenly Tao laws of the plane, then judges are the only ones who control the great Tao laws of the entire chaos." An indecipherable emotion flashed across his eyes. He continued, "There are countless planes in the chaos. Each plane has its own heavenly Tao laws. That's why there are countless managers. But there is only one great Tao law in the chaos. That's why there can only be one judge." Shen Ying frowned. "You are the candidate to take over my position," he said solemnly, "but I don't know if you can be a good judge. So be it the Big Tao organization or this invading system, they are all tests I prepared for you. Only if you pass these tests and meet my requirements, can I rest assured in letting you take over my position. I don't want it." Before he could finish, Shen Ying rejected him. The man paused. What the hell? Was he hearing things just now? She actually gave up so easily? If you want to keep it, keep it. Shen Ying waved her hand lazily. She continued to eat her fruit as she turned to leave. "If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. I'm still hungry." "Wait." The man finally reacted. In a flash, he stood in front of Shen Ying. "You can't leave." But was she not allowed to resign even if she didn't want to be promoted? The man was stunned. His eyes darted around. After a while, he said, "Your power has already grown to the level of a judge. But there can only be one judge in the world. So even if you pass my test, there must be a winner between us." "Oh." Shen Ying nodded. She said crisply, "I admit defeat. That should do it, right? Go home, go home. The man seemed to be angered. He stood in front of her and said, "That's not what I meant when I said winner." "What do you mean then?" His expression darkened. With a heavy tone, he said, "Between us, only one can exist in this world." Shen Ying's hand froze. The man sighed heavily. He smiled kindly again. "It's just that our powers are about the same now. If we really fight, the entire plane in the chaos realm will be destroyed. That's why I set up those tests. I want to solve this problem in a more peaceful way. If you pass the test, I will naturally disappear." Shen Ying tilted her head. You mean, between the two of us, one has to disappear? That's right. He nodded. If both of us don't disappear, Shen Ying asked seriously, will my food allowance be deducted? The man paused. He subconsciously replied, it can't be, right? Oh, that's all right. She heaved a sigh of relief. Wait a minute. What has this got to do with food allowance? Why are we suddenly talking about this? You don't understand what I mean. I'm saying that there can only be one judge. Who made that rule? Is it against the law to have two judges? Before he could finish, Shen Ying interrupted him. You've been a judge for a long time, and I've been awake for a long time. In other words, the two of us have existed at the same time. Why can't there be two? The man paused. He could not find any words to refute her. All right, I'm leaving. Shen Ying turned to walk around him. Wait. He stood in front of her again. Unwilling to give up, he said, although I don't know what will happen if two judges exist at the same time, I'm sure it will have a very bad effect. That's why we have to, then we'll talk about it when it happens. Chapter 696. What did you say? The man frowned and looked at her in shock. He scolded her in disbelief. As a judge, how could you allow something like this to happen? What if it affects all the planes? You might not be able to bear the consequences. Although I'm not very satisfied with the results of your test, I didn't think that you wouldn't have any self-awareness as a judge. You don't deserve to be a judge. I actually thought. You wanted me to voluntarily give up the power of a judge, to give it to you? Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. She suddenly continued, or should I say, you want me to die here for the sake of your so-called righteousness? The man paused. His eyes widened. What did you say? I said the reason why you appeared here in the first place. Shen Ying smiled. She still looked nonchalant, but every word that came out of her mouth was shocking. When I said I was a judge, you did not refute my identity. You only emphasized that there can only be one judge, but you could not tell me why. Let me guess. She glanced at the man and continued, there are only two reasons why you can't tell me. First, you really don't know. Second, you can't tell me. If you don't know, then everything you said before must be true. However, for a person who had set up many obstacles for the next judge and personally tested them, it was impossible for him to come to a conclusion so easily without confirmation. But you kept stopping me from leaving. So it can only be the second reason. You can't tell me. His face turned green. Let me guess again. Why can't you tell me? Shen Ying continued to deduce slowly. The reason why he can't say it, he must be trying to hide something. But we're both judges. All the planes in the Chaos Realm combined are no threat to us. Of course, except for each other. So this reason must be because of me. But before today, we've never met each other. There's no enmity between us. You have no other reason to target me other than our common identity. His expression darkened. So, let me make another bold guess. Shen Ying's expression turned serious. She said in a low voice, you said that there can only be one judge. Maybe it's true. But you can feel this, but I can't. I was suddenly dormant, and then I realized I was a judge. In that case, did you suddenly realize that you were no longer a judge? It's more likely that your power has been fading away. Shut up. He suddenly raised his head and glared at her, a trace of panic flashing through his eyes. Shen Ying did not stop. She said word by word, I'm afraid there was no test at all. You wanted to kill me from the start. That way, he would be the only judge. He sneered, as if he had removed all pretense, and his face was slowly tainted with a look of jealousy and hatred. I've underestimated you. When did you start suspecting me? Shen Ying's expression darkened. Since you attacked my people. He did hide it very well, but he could not hide his murderous intent towards Chef and Lone Moon. It was hard for her not to suspect him. The man was taken aback, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. So you knew from the beginning. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he didn't bother to conceal his killing intent. So now, what do you plan to do? Fight with me? At the cost of all the planes. No. Shen gave him a look like she was looking at an idiot. Why should I fight with you? Don't you want to be the only judge? He blurted out. If you don't fight with me now, aren't you afraid that I'll find a chance to kill you one day? Your power has been fading away. Why should I be afraid of you? She was not the one who would be at a disadvantage if this dragged on. He was no longer her match. The man was flustered, but he could not refute her. You keep forcing me to fight. Is it because you can only stop me from replacing you if I agree? Shen Ying laughed softly and pointed out his thoughts. I'm sorry, I really don't want to cooperate with you. With that said, she turned and walked away. She was a little late today. She was so hungry. She wondered if Chef had finished cooking. Stop right there. The man panicked. He tried to pull her back but failed. Shen Ying's guess was right. His power was indeed fading away. In other words, if he did not defeat her this time, perhaps he would never have a chance to win. There were so many planes in the Chaos Realm. If she really did not want to see him, perhaps when his power completely disappeared, he would not be able to find her again. So this was his only chance to regain his identity as a judge. His expression turned cold. Seeing that he could not trick her, he thought of something and directly threatened her. I can tolerate existences like the Big Tao organization. If you leave, aren't you afraid that I'll attack other planes? I don't care. Shen Ying did not even turn her head. Eating was more important. Don't forget, there are still those 2 assistants of yours who have contracts. It's easy for you to leave, but they are both managers. Their planes cannot run away. Shen Ying's footsteps slowed. Oh, right. Seeing that it was effective, the man was delighted. He continued to threaten, you seem to have an older sister who is a monitor in a high-level plane. Perhaps I can start with her first. Shen Ying stopped in her tracks. She did not turn around. Instead, she tightened her grip on the fruit and crushed it. The juices exploded and stuck to her hand. Her voice turned cold. You say that again? Who is she going to attack? The man laughed even more sinisterly. I remember that her plane is not very far from here, right? I wonder how long a monitor like her can last in my hands? Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, several beams of red light flashed around them. Instantly, 4 translucent red light walls rose up, forming a huge box that trapped the 2 of them inside. The man looked at the translucent red light walls that suddenly appeared around him warily. The art of sealing? But he had never seen such an art of sealing. Only then did Shen Ying slowly turn around. Her originally adorable face was filled with a bone-chilling coldness. It was as if one look at her would cause frostbite. There seemed to be some kind of frightening aura coming from her body. In an instant, it filled the entire wall of light. Her anger was mixed with murderous intent. It carried with it an aura that seemed to be able to destroy all living things. Even the man, who was a judge, could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He subconsciously took a step back. But all he heard was the other party's words. I dare you to touch a single hair on my sister's head. The man was shocked. A moment later, he was filled with excitement. He laughed out loud. Haha, that's right. You have no other choice. Let's see who's better. Then let him take her power as a judge. Otherwise, I'll kill your sister. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly felt a pain in his chest. Shen Ying, who was originally tens of steps away, suddenly appeared beside him. She punched him hard in the chest. He felt immense pain all over his body. That shocking power seemed to be crushing his entire body. Even the energy in his body was shaken, as if it was about to be scattered. His entire body was sent flying. Chapter 697. The man's heart jumped. He somersaulted in the air and stabilized himself. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the person opposite him. You do have some skills. He had been too careless. But the corner of his mouth lifted to reveal a scheming smile. As long as she made a move, she would definitely lose this battle. In the next moment, his figure swayed and he disappeared from his original spot. In an instant, a formless energy that did not lose to Shen Ying's pounced towards the man opposite him. It carried with it an aura that seemed to be able to destroy everything. Even the pitch-black chaotic space around them seemed to sense it and retreated far away. The man's voice rang out all around them. "I'll let you see what a true judge is like." As soon as he finished speaking, the energy surrounded Shen Ying and began to spin wildly. It was getting tighter and tighter. With every spin, the energy around Shen Ying's body decreased by a bit. He was absorbing her energy. Your energy will also belong to me. I'm the only judge." The man's voice was getting more and more arrogant. The formless energy wrapped around Shen Ying's body tighter and tighter. There was not much energy left in Shen Ying's body. Even the light walls around them were starting to shake. It looked like they were about to collapse. The sharp blade-like force swallowed the energy and attacked Shen Ying directly. With a swoosh, it slashed across the side of her face. A glaring red slid down the side of her face. Shen Ying paused and subconsciously reached out to touch her face. She stared blankly at the unfamiliar red on her fingertips and narrowed her eyes. Her originally cold black eyes seemed to be dyed red. The man's attack was getting more and more ferocious. The surrounding energy was getting tighter and tighter. Shen Ying's energy had been completely absorbed. She was like a lamp that had run out of oil. Finally, the last defense around her body shattered. The violent energy rushed towards her. It looked like it was about to kill her. Suddenly, a glaring red light shone from her body again. It was like thousands of sharp blades. The moment the man's energy rushed towards her, she counterattacked. Thousands of rays of light shot out, as if they were going to pierce through the entire chaotic space. The man let out a blood-curdling scream, and the surrounding energy began to twist unstably, as if it was being attacked by something. What is this? Impossible, her energy had clearly been absorbed by him. How could there still be? And it could even hit him, who had already turned into pure energy. Before he could think clearly, Shen Ying suddenly reached up and grabbed something. There was nothing in her hand. However, he felt as if his entire body was being squeezed by something. In the next moment, there was a gust of wind, and he felt dizzy. With a bang, he smashed into the wall of light beneath his feet. Ah! The man cried out in pain again. The ball of energy that he had transformed into trembled, as if it was about to be torn apart. "This is impossible. How can you catch me?" Shen Ying picked up the ball of gas and smashed it around in a routine manner, producing a series of loud thuds. With each smash, some of the energy that the man had just absorbed would be shaken off. In less than a moment, all the energy that he had just absorbed would be smashed out. The man didn't even have time to react. It was only when he felt that he couldn't even protect his own energy that he thought of resisting. The ball of condensed energy dissipated instantly and retreated. He once again turned into his human form. Compared to the arrogant look he had just now, the man now looked especially wretched. He glared at Shen Ying with a ferocious expression, but a hint of fear flashed across his eyes. "I've underestimated you. I didn't think that you'd already grown to such a stage." Even he couldn't completely absorb her energy. He looked at her with fear, then looked at the walls of light around them. Something flashed in his eyes as he said, "However, there's still time. One day, all the energy in your body will belong to me." With that said, his figure flashed, and he turned to rush upwards. He had miscalculated. He didn't dare to attack just like that. It was better for him to leave first. "Can you escape?" Shen Ying's expression darkened. The surrounding wall of light lit up and suddenly blocked in front of the man. The man laughed coldly. With a wave of his hand, he released a beam of energy. You think you can stop me with this?" Before he could finish speaking, he heard a sizzling sound. The energy that he released was instantly swallowed up by the wall of light. How is this possible? His eyes widened in disbelief. Weren't these walls of light set up by Shen Ying to prevent their energy from spreading to other planes? How could they possibly block his full-powered attack? Without time to think, Shen Ying raised her hand. Above the wall of light, thousands of beams of red light suddenly shot out. They were densely packed and shot towards the man. Caught off guard, he was hit by one of the beams and it went straight through his body. He subconsciously wanted to transform into an invisible energy body, but he found that his whole body was sluggish. Something had sealed the energy in his body. He couldn't transform at all. He could only let the red light create bloody holes in his body. Not only that, the energy in his body was leaking out continuously from the wounds. His whole body was like a punctured balloon, leaking energy uncontrollably. This can't be. Why is this happening? My energy. No, don't. He finally panicked. His eyes widened in fear. He frantically tried to cover the wounds on his body, but he couldn't move at all. It was as if something had locked him in place. There was no way he could stop the energy from flowing out of his body. What kind of light is this? His face was pale. He stared at Xining as if thinking of something. The fear in his eyes deepened. This is not the power of a judge can't do this. Who are you? Xining did not answer him. She only walked towards him step by step. Her face was cold and expressionless. Only her bright red eyes were especially frightening. It was as if they could destroy everything. The man wanted to resist, but he couldn't move at all. He could only watch as she walked closer and closer until she stood right next to him. Then she reached out and grabbed his neck, lifting him up. She was only grabbing his neck, but he felt as if his whole body was being squeezed by something. Moreover, the grip was getting tighter and tighter. At that moment, he felt as if his internal organs, consciousness, and divine soul were being squeezed by some unknown force. An indescribable pain engulfed him. The man's eyes widened. His face was full of fear. His whole body began to twist and distort. One moment, he became an invisible energy body, and the next moment, he changed back to his original body. No, don't kill me. I was wrong. Please, I beg you. Xining did not let go. Instead, she tightened her grip. Her eyes narrowed. Suddenly, she leaned closer and said word by word, "It doesn't matter how you deal with me. But my sister won't do it even once." As soon as she finished speaking, she tightened her grip and crushed his spirit body. With a bang, the man's distorted body exploded and turned into countless energy particles that scattered everywhere. Chapter 698. Once the man died, a huge shockwave spread out in all directions. Even the chaos space shook. Fortunately, most of the energy was locked inside the wall of light. It did not reach the plane in the chaos space. Xining raised her hand and the wall of light shrank into a small red cube. A ball of white energy was locked inside. She looked at it and frowned. Then she stuffed it into her storage bag in disgust. Only then did the redness in his eyes fade away little by little. Big Boss? The parenting system, which had been isolated outside the red wall and was not affected at all, called out weakly. Big Boss was so scary. Scarier than ever before. Xining looked up at it. Did you swallow up the main system? Swallowed it up. The parenting system blinked its cartoon eyes. Big Boss had instructed it to do this from the start. After it obtained the physical body, Big Boss promoted it and instructed it to swallow up the other's program after the main system collapsed. That way, it would become the new main system. Even if there were scattered subsystems in other planes, Big Boss would be able to control them completely. Reporting Boss. I've found a total of 1,568 subsystems scattered across different dimensions. Do you want to recall them now? Xining tilted her head, looking uninterested. She raised her hand and opened the plane passage. Let's go home and eat first. So hungry. Yes, Big Boss. No problem, Big Boss. Indeed, Big Boss was still the same Big Boss. As long as it had a leg to lean on, there was nothing to be afraid of. It wasn't afraid at all just now. 3. Chef, slow down. It hurts. Be more King gentle. How can I slow down at a time like this? I can't take it anymore. Bear with it. Can you bear with something like this? Why don't you go down and experience it for yourself? I know. Just give it to me. You said that half an hour ago. I'm dying. Xining, who had just returned, she rubbed her eyes and looked at the two people who were hugging each other not far away. Speaking of which, Did she come back at the wrong time? Oh, what are you guys doing? What's with this sudden feeling of being cuckolded? Only then did the two of them turn around. Shining! Lone Moon exclaimed in shock. The person in front of her flashed and appeared in front of Xin Ying in an instant. She felt her waist tighten, and then she was hugged. The other party's embrace was a little tight, causing Xin Ying's already starving stomach to feel even more uncomfortable. However, the hands around her waist were slightly trembling, as if to confirm something. His head was buried in the silky hair at the side of her neck. After a long time, he spoke in a hoarse and aggrieved voice, "Master." Shen Ying was just about to pull his hand away when she stopped. Instead, she gently stroked his back and answered, "Eh." "Are you okay?" Lone Moon quickly got up and walked over worriedly. He directly pulled Shen Ying out of Chef's arms and scanned her from head to toe. He pulled her arm and pinched her face. "You're not missing an arm, not broken a leg. You're alive." He heaved a huge sigh of relief, as if the tightened bowstring was finally released. He then glared at her and said, "Holy shit, which version of cheat are you? You're okay?" One had to know that the person just now was the scariest opponent they had met so far. Otherwise, Shen Ying would not have sent them back so quickly. This proved that she did not have the confidence to win, but she came back unscathed. "You're not forcing yourself, are you?" Lone Moon thought of something and his expression changed. Chef also looked nervous. He also looked at her. "Master, I'm fine." Shen Ying's mouth twitched and she directly took a step back. "It's fine if you pinched my face, but why did you directly bite me? Do you want to see if I'm 24K innocent?" "Master, you said the same thing the last time." Chef frowned directly and became more worried. When a new plane was opened, she also forced herself to hold on for a long time. In the end, she had to enter a dormant period before she showed it. That's right. Lone Moon obviously thought of this too. "Your credibility is in the negative now. If something really happens?" "No, we have to ask Sister Jing to come and take a look." Chef also nodded and suggested. "It's too slow to ask her to come over. Let's go over directly." "All right, let's go over now." With that said, he directly turned and drew a line. This time, there were no obstacles and instantly opened the plane gate to the other world. Chef nervously turned back to look at Shen Ying again. "Master should be very weak now. I'll carry her over. Be careful. Remember to lie flat. I'll lift her leg." With that said, Chef directly carried his waist. On the other side, Lone Moon had already lifted her leg. Before Shen Ying could react, she was already carried into the door by the two like a sack. Thus, a certain person who finally had a day off and was sitting at home drinking coffee looked up. Suddenly, there were two people in disheveled clothes carrying what looked like his own sister on their shoulders. "Shen Ying, Xin Jing, hello, 110? Winky face 10 minutes later. Xin Jing reached out to take down the detector above Xin Ying's head. She glanced at the light screen at the side and then at the nervous Lone Moon and Chef with some confusion. She then said, "Other than the increase in fat index, the other data are all normal." She reached out to look at Xin Ying's stomach. Look, there was even fat. Lone Moon then heaved a sigh of relief. Chef at the side didn't understand. He suddenly stood up and asked even more worriedly, "Senior Xin, may I ask if this paper house index is serious? How should it be treated?" With that said, he even turned back to look at Shen Ying with some accusation. "Master, something really happened to you. She actually wanted to hide it from them." Lone Moon, Shen Ying, Xin Jing, Senior Xin. Seeing that she didn't answer for a long time, Chef became even more worried. "It's okay, she won't die." The corner of Xin Jing's mouth twitched. Then she replied, "Just eat less." Chef was stunned. Only then did he understand what she said. His expression softened a little. "What exactly happened?" Shen Jing frowned and glanced at the three of them. "What made you take the risk of me breaking your legs and hurriedly carry little in here for a checkup?" Lone Moon and Chef exchanged a look. Then they both turned to look to the side. For a moment, 3 pairs of eyes were fixed on a certain person. Shen Ying, who was about to reach for the bag of chips beside her, stiffened. Why don't we talk after dinner? She was really hungry. She said resolutely. Her fat index was already high. How could she still eat? Are you guys demons? Can the two of you put on your clothes first before asking? Shen-ing let out a long sigh. It's very difficult for me to speak clearly in front of two people who are only wearing underwear when I'm hungry. Chapter 699. Adjudicator? Shen Jing was stunned for a moment and frowned. Elder Sister Jing, you've never heard of them before? Lone Moon asked, slightly surprised. Shen Jing shook her head. I've never heard of any judge before. There are uncountable numbers of planes in the primal chaos. Even the existence of monitors, I only know about me and Milu. She turned to look at Shen-ing. Little Ing, your ability is special. It far surpasses that of a monitor. Could it be that you're a judge like the person who attacked you? Shen-ing, who was hugging the bag of chips, looked up. As she ate, she said, At first I thought so too. But after fighting with him, I realized that I might not be one. What do you mean? The three of them paused. Because the other party was too weak. Shen-ing pondered for a moment. Then she took out the parenting system from her pocket and poked it. Baby's home. Put down the recording. Yes, big boss. No problem, big boss. The parenting system blinked its cartoon eyes. The entire cube emitted several beams of white light. Instantly, the scene in the room changed. In an instant, the recording of Shen-ing and the judge's battle in the chaos world was projected. The figures of Shen-ing and the man appeared in front of them. A moment later, she heard the voice of the other party in disbelief. He asked her who she was, his face filled with fear. After a short while, his body was crushed by Shen-ing and scattered into pieces. From start to finish, the entire battle took less than 10 minutes. Compared to the crushing opponents that Shen-ing had faced in the past, there was not much difference. The only difference was that she was serious this time. His consciousness has been destroyed. All that's left is this. Shen-ing took out a translucent box and placed it on the table. There was a ball of white energy inside. This ball of energy should be his energy as a judge. Some of it was scattered into the chaos world and I can't collect it. But I can't analyze this ball of energy. It seems like it's rejecting me. It would be a waste to throw it away. That was why she kept it. Energy rejecting you? Shen Jing frowned and turned to look at her. Energy doesn't have sentience. Since the judge's consciousness has been destroyed, why would it still reject you? Lone Moon and I Ching reacted as well. That's right. To put it simply, energy was like eating bread. Although there were all kinds of flavors, they were all meant to be eaten. There was only bread that someone didn't like. How could the bread not agree to let someone eat it? I don't know what's going on. Shen-ing directly reached out and placed her hand on top of the box. Indeed, in a short while, the white energy body in the box suddenly made a few crackling sounds. Tiny sparks like lightning drilled out of it and hit her palm, as if it was resisting her approach. It's really rejecting you. Lone Moon received the box with some surprise. He looked at the ball of white energy carefully, then turned to show it to Chef beside him, but he could not see anything special about it. After a while, he suddenly thought of something and said in a low voice, Could it be that the remnant soul of the Nephilic judge is still hidden in here? After all, he was a Nephilic judge, who was even more terrifying than a monitor. It was possible that he had a backup plan that they could not see through. As soon as he said that, everyone's expressions changed, except for Shen-ing. It's not impossible. Let me see. Shen Jing's expression darkened. She immediately pulled out a screen and scanned the data in the box. Compared to when she checked on Shen-ing, the data this time was pathetically little. There was only the energy, but the value could not be displayed. Shen Jing looked at it carefully for a while. The more she looked, the darker her expression became. There's nothing wrong with the data. There's no remnant consciousness either. Logically, there shouldn't be any rejection. I have to do a deeper scan. This way I can see. As she spoke, she subconsciously reached for the box. Just as she was about to touch it, the entire box lit up. Older sister. Shen-ing was shocked. She reached out to pull her away, but it was too late. The white ball of energy that was originally trapped in the box suddenly rushed toward Xinjing at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, it entered her body. In the next moment, Xinjing's entire body emitted a dazzling white light. The entire room was bathed in a snow-white light. A huge wave of energy swept out from her body. Shen Ying was forced to take a step back. Lone Moon and I Ching were sent flying. The sofa, coffee table, tables and chairs around them, even the ground turned into dust. Everything was about to disappear. It was very likely that the entire plane was going to be sucked in. Shen Ying had no choice but to draw a line in the air. In an instant, she created a space outside the realm and transferred the few of them inside. She also grabbed Lone Moon and I Ching. Older sister. Shen Ying's expression darkened. She raised her hand, wanting to tear the white light apart and pull them inside. Lone Moon, who was beside her, pulled her back. Wait, Shen Ying. The light is disappearing. Shen Ying paused. Indeed, the white light came quickly and left even faster. In an instant, it retracted, along with the energy that had swept away previously. In an instant, it retracted and entered Xinjing's body. Even the white light on her body dimmed. The whole thing happened in less than 2 seconds. If not for the empty box floating in front of her, it would seem that the shocking energy had never appeared. Older sister? Shen Ying looked at her carefully. Are you all right? Xinjing looked at her hands. A rare look of confusion flashed across her face. I think. Shen Ying was just about to step forward when Lone Moon and I Ching's expressions changed. Their eyes widened as they looked at Xinjing in shock. Shen Ying, the aura on older sister Jing's body. What? Shen Ying faltered. Holy shit, can't you tell? Lone Moon was even more shocked. The energy on her body suddenly became so scary. Although it was scary in the past, it was not like now. It made them a little afraid to go near her. Energy? Shen Ying tilted her head. What's wrong? Was there a difference? Master, Senior Shen's aura now. I Ching also spoke up. It's the same as the judge from before. Shen Ying's expression darkened. She looked closely and realized that the energy on her older sister's body had indeed changed. It was just that to her, it was not very obvious. But it did give off some of the feeling of the judge from before. Could it be, older sister? Xinjing nodded. She sorted out the large amount of information that suddenly surged into her mind. The energy that you sealed in the box just merged with me. Merged? Then what are you now? Lone Moon could not help but ask. Xinjing put down her hands and turned to look at the three of them. Then she said in a low voice. I'm the judge now. Shen Ying, Lone Moon, I Ching, huh? Chapter 700. Elder Sister Jean, you really became a judge? Lone Moon looked at Xinjing in disbelief. Xinjing was emanating a terrifying aura. She was different from the fear they felt before. She was like an unreachable mountain. Just one look at her made them feel like they were going to get lost in the huge energy. If the information I received when I merged the energy is correct, I am indeed one. Xinjing clenched her fists and frowned. And, just now, I received information from all the planes in the chaos world. This feeling was very similar to when she became a manager. It was as if she could control the life and death of all living things with a single thought. Only that the living things in the past belonged to the entire plane. Now, she belonged to all the planes. What happened to the rejection? He and Chef had touched that box before, but they did not merge. Why did Xinjing merge the moment she touched it? Could it be that the energy was picky? It only picked the strong ones. Oh, hashtag. Wait, that's not right. It should be Shen Ying, shouldn't it? She was the most powerful cheat. Why is it that only you, Elder Sister Jean, can merge with this energy? Lone Moon asked subconsciously. Xinjing sorted out the large amount of information that suddenly appeared in her mind. Then she explained, it's not just me. As long as a manager can withstand this energy, anyone can merge with it. Then just now, he and Chef had touched it before. Xinjing glanced at him and changed the topic. To be exact, Apart from Xin-Ing, everyone can merge with this energy. The only difference is whether they can withstand it or not. The three of them hesitated. What did she mean? Could it be that this energy was not because it liked Xinjing, but because it despised Xin-Ing? This energy is indeed rejecting little Ing. Xinjing continued. As her assistants, your powers also originate from her. That's why you can't merge with this energy. But Xin-Ing frowned. There is no consciousness in this energy. She felt it from the beginning. The previous judge's consciousness had completely dissipated. It was impossible for him to control this energy. But why was it rejecting her? It's not the previous judge's consciousness that is rejecting you. Xinjing turned to look at her and said in a low voice, it's the entire chaos world. Lone Moon, I Ching. Xin-Ing, what? Were there not enough people who despised him, including all the people? Wonderful, little Ing, you should have felt it. Your ability is special. Xinjing sighed and looked at her with uncertainty. Even the current me can't tell where the limits of your abilities are. And in the entire primal chaos, there is no existence stronger than the Nephilic Judge, except for you. Then, Lone Moon looked at Xinjing, then turned back to look at Xin-Ing. Xin-Ing, what exactly is she? She. Xinjing's brows furrowed as if she was thinking about her words. After a while, she replied, it should be an accident. What the hell? From what I just learned, her ability, her appearance, and everything else was an accident. A hint of confusion flashed across Xinjing's eyes. As if recalling something, she sighed and said, she should not have appeared in this world. I was the one who forcefully awakened her. So her birth was an accident. She was originally a normal person, but she completed all my training and became my assistant. It was also an accident that she transmigrated to that plane and obtained extraordinary abilities. It was even more of an accident that she became a manager. Xinjing took a few steps forward and scanned Xin-Ing from head to toe. She continued, everything about her should not have existed, but it does. These small deviations are not a big deal. But the ones who directly or indirectly caused all these changes are me, the monitor, and you two managers. So her situation has exceeded all the rules and expectations. She's not even under the control of the judge. Lone Moon paused. It took him a long time to digest Xinjing's words. In other words, Xin-Ing was actually nobody. She was really just a cheat. Winky face, what's up with that judge from before? Xin-Ing asked as she pulled out the bag of chips that she hadn't finished from somewhere. She was munching on them. Lone Moon and I Ching paused for a moment. That's right. Even Xinjing, who had just become a judge, knew all this. Then why did that person think that Xin-Ing was the judge and come looking for death? Xinjing thought about it. After a while, she guessed, he must be blind. The judge is the same as the manager. There is only one judge. Little Ying's appearance may have affected his abilities. He sensed danger. This was a warning from the Chaos Realm. But he mistakenly thought that the Chaos Realm had chosen a second judge to replace him. That was why he wanted to get rid of Little Ing first. How could he mistake something like that? He must be blind. Or perhaps his identity as a judge was also obtained through stealing. That's why he thought that as long as he defeated Little Ing, he could obtain her powers. Still, Lone Moon and I Ching thought of something at the same time. They exchanged a look and said in unison, the main system. That's right. They had been chasing after the invading subsystem. That was how they discovered the judge. What's more, he had been trying to stop Xin-Ing from destroying it. Now that they thought about it, whether it was the main system or the Heavenly Tao Society that he had hidden, the only similarity between the two was that they could seize power from other planes, wasn't it? The only difference was the scale. Also, when he was fighting Xin-Ing, he purposely provoked Xin-Ing to attack him. He even used Xinjing to threaten her. That was why Xin-Ing flew into a rage. He needed the other party's consent before he attacked. Wasn't this the same method that the subsystem used to steal the original owner's primary soul? Holy shit! Lone Moon cursed subconsciously. From the looks of it, it was really as Xinjing said. That was probably how the judge from before became a judge. Who knew how many planes he had destroyed? No wonder he had his eyes on Shen Ying, the cheat. If that's the case... I Ching thought of something. He turned to Shen Jing and said, "That power just now has merged with Senior Shen. Then you... Will you be alright? You don't have to worry about that." Shen Jing glanced at the two of them and said, "Becoming a judge is not just about having power. What's important is the recognition of the chaos. If the previous judge really stole other people's powers to become a judge, then he probably hasn't been fully recognized by the chaos. He probably hasn't been fully acknowledged by chaos yet, which is why his power has been flowing away." "Then you dash me?" She suddenly laughed, but there was not much excitement in her voice. Instead, she turned to look at Shen Ying with a strange expression. The corner of her mouth twitched before she said, "That depends on little Ying." Shen Ying? Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look. What did this have to do with her? The judge's responsibility is to maintain the balance and stability of all the planes in the chaos. An accident like little Ying's is naturally the most unstable factor. Yet even the judge can't do anything about her. So the chaos chose the only person who can do anything about her. Shen Jing pointed to herself and said word by word, "It chose me to be the judge." Lone Moon, I Ching, this was the reason why Sister Jing became the judge? The kind that specifically countered Shen Ying? Although it sounded like child's play, why did she feel like she was witty? Shen Ying, son of AB***. Chapter 701. Shen Ying had become a real boss, the kind that even the chaos space could not defeat. Lone Moon was used to being shocked and shocked by this. Actually, little Ying is secondary. Shen Jing glanced at a certain person who was munching on potato chips like a rat. She sorted out the information about the chaos space that had just appeared in her mind and sighed. But this judge... Shen Jing felt that her new job as a judge was a little difficult. Is it very troublesome? Shen Ying asked subconsciously. She was only dealing with matters between planes. Her job was probably similar to that of a monitor. Nonsense. Shen Jing rolled her eyes at them. Although planes rarely come into contact with each other, it's impossible. Although there is very little contact between planes, we can't rule out the possibility of managers or monitors. She seemed to have thought of something and frowned. There are countless planes in the chaos space. I don't know how many more things are waiting for me. In the end, it was all troublesome. In this way, Shen Ying was not a big deal. Actually, the chaos space had too many concerns. Little Ying's ability was indeed special, but Shen Jing knew her character best. She would not do anything that would endanger all the planes. Can't Senior Shen sense the danger in the chaos space? I Ching could not help but ask. Even managers could sense danger in the planes. The judge should be able to too. Shen Jing glanced at him. When I can sense it, it won't be a danger anymore. It was true that she could sense the situation of all the planes in the chaos dimension by closing her eyes, but which bad person would first announce to the world that they were doing something bad before doing something bad? Only when the situation was serious enough would people find out. But by then it would probably be too late to turn back. Just like when she first became a manager, she was attacked and invaded. By the time Mi Lu, the monitor, sensed that other planes were invading, she had already more or less resolved it. Since she was now a judge, she had to change. Naturally, she did not want the same thing to happen again. But the chaos space was too big and there was only one judge. No matter how many eyes she had, she could not keep an eye on everything. There would always be something she missed. "Sister, why don't you try this eye?" Shen Ying suddenly grabbed the parenting system and handed it over. Ding. System. System greets big sister. The parenting system blinked twice before obediently greeting Kiran. Shen Jing took it and saw that the other party was just a program. She subconsciously opened a holographic screen and brought up the other party's data. Suddenly, a row of complicated data flashed across the screen. She only took one look before her eyes widened. This is a self-replicating main system. Wait. Her eyes darkened again. It has awakened its consciousness. Shen Ying nodded. Although the main body is just a set of data, it is already a special living being. Living beings? What kind of creature? Lone Moon did not understand and could not help but interrupt. Suddenly, he thought of something and his eyes widened. Holy shit! The last time you upgraded it, it didn't directly turn into a spirit, did it? Suddenly possessing a soul or something like that. One must know that the ultimate goal of the invasion of 001, as well as the swarm of beehive-like systems, was to have an independent consciousness, in other words, a soul. According to Xinjing, the parenting system already existed. You made it sentient? Not me. Shen Ying stuffed the last potato chip into her mouth and turned to dig out Chef's storage bag out of habit. She explained, "It's you and Chef." Chef, who was helping to dig out pastries, paused. She nodded and continued, "The two of you are the managers. You acknowledged the existence of the system from the beginning. It was only a matter of time before it developed its own consciousness and had its own soul." Lone Moon and I Ching were stunned. They exchanged a look and then turned around. Indeed, from the beginning, they had never seen the parenting system as a set of programs, even if it had always been possessing Feng Ying's body. But with Xin Ying's real-time little broadcast, they had long known of its existence. Especially after they got that cube, it became even harder for them to link the parenting system to Feng Ying. In addition, it constantly fawned over Xin Ying. Such human-like behavior made them not see it as a string of data, but as an independent entity, or rather, a human. Lone Moon and Chef were both managers. They represented two complete planes. If even they acknowledged the parenting system, then it was indeed normal for it to develop its own consciousness. Suddenly, they wanted to light a candle for the nest of invading systems that had already been completely destroyed. Thousands of other systems had tried their best to invade planes but still failed. The parenting system actually did it so easily. All their efforts were not as good as a piece of flattery. So, flattery was useless in the end? Older sister, can this be used? Shen Ying ignored the confused two and asked again. Xin Jing then kept the screen and nodded. Not bad. With this system, it indeed saves a lot of trouble. There were thousands of subsystems connected to this thing, and it could also replicate itself. This was equivalent to having countless eyes, making it easier for her to manage the planes in the chaos. It's just that, its program still needs to be adjusted. There was a problem with the way the subsystems under this system entered each plane. It was considered a direct invasion and would inevitably affect the plane. But she was a judge. It was not a problem to give it the right to enter freely. As if it had seen through their plan, the parenting system eagerly flew 2 circles around Xinjing. As it flew, it chirped excitedly. System will serve Big Sister wholeheartedly in the future. Big Sister will rule the chaos for thousands of generations. Lone Moon, I Ching, this wasn't a data demon. This was a bootlicker. Alright, come here. Xinjing reached out and the parenting system landed obediently in her palm. It was a little complicated to modify so many subsystems at once. She had to go back and do it slowly. But, she turned to look at Xining. As if recalling something, she frowned. When I became a monitor, I wanted you to replace me as the new manager. Xining paused and subconsciously took a step back. But she heard Xinjing continue, but based on your current situation, it looks like you can't do it. Given how much the chaos was afraid of Xin Ying's abilities, it probably would not acknowledge her. Phew, that's good. Managing planes was so troublesome. She finally managed to push out 2. I've become a judge. I don't think I can stay in my own plane forever. Naturally, I can't continue to be the manager of this plane. Before the plane's consciousness chooses a new manager, someone has to take care of it first. Xin Ying and Chef exchanged a look. Then, very tacitly, they both took a step back and looked at someone beside them. Holy shit! Why are you looking at me? Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He glared back at them. The two of you are so deceitful. Not only did you dump 2 planes, you want to dump a 3rd one? Scram. Chapter 702. In the end, Lone Moon did not take over that plane. After all, Shinjing still had an assistant there. Although Shinjing despised Kai Tian, he had worked there for so many years. Apart from Shening, he was the person who was most familiar with that plane. Before a new manager appeared, it was still possible to manage the plane temporarily. At most, the workload would increase by 3 times. Shinjing accepted the position of judge very quickly. She did not hesitate and accepted it. Lone Moon felt that it was partly because of Shin-ing, and partly because of her previous experience. Shin-ing had mentioned a few times that when she was young, she was often attacked by invaders. They had all experienced Shinjing's strength. Those invaders could not defeat Shinjing, so they could only attack Shin-ing. And to be able to attack under Shinjing's nose, that kind of invader was probably at least at the level of a manager. Back then, in order to protect Shin-ing, she had to guard the plane. The hardships were unimaginable. Therefore, she had always detested the vicious battles between planes. Shinjing was different from the previous judge. The previous judge's existence was not even known to the monitors. They only operated behind the scenes. Shinjing, however, immediately contacted and broadcast to all the monitors, announcing her existence. The main idea was simple: don't mess around, or I'll mess with you. Although this might be a little dangerous, there would always be people who thought highly of themselves and wanted to provoke her. But given Shinjing's abilities, no one could defeat her. And her only weakness, Shin-ing, was even more difficult to provoke than her. That was why there was no need to hide at all. As for the parenting system, it had already been officially renamed Chaos Surveillance System. Its main purpose was to help Shinjing travel between different planes and collect information from different planes. That way, Shinjing could discover and solve problems faster. In the past, the system had been an illegal invasion, but now it was open and above board. With the authorization of the adjudicator judge, the system had even collected countless passes from the various planes. Furthermore, the system didn't need to possess any host at all. Of course, Chef and Loneman's plane were the first to issue the passes. As for Feng-ing, the parenting system carefully copied a subsystem and told them to bring it back. In any case, the system had been taking care of him for many years. Now that he was going to be separated, it had to find someone to take his place. Shen-ing and the other two did not stay there for long. After watching Kai Tian for a while, they quickly returned to their own plane's divine realm while Shinjing was busy modifying the system's data. If he didn't leave now, he probably wouldn't be able to. Lone Moon strongly condemned the master and disciples' initial reaction of wanting to sell out their father. He even claimed that he would deduct 3 months' worth of food expenses and let them reflect on their actions. So hungry! Shen-ing rubbed her ears that were getting calluses from Father Nyo's nagging. She then patted her flat belly. Why don't we eat first before reflecting on ourselves? Yes, master, eat your sister. Without waiting for Chef to finish, Lone Moon roared. He was still in a state of anger and directly rejected the feeding request. Is this F***king reflection? He turned around and glared at the two of them. Eat until you die. Let's go back to Invincible's sect first. She had just eaten 3 bags of potato chips, 5 plates of pastries, and 6 fruits. Are you a freaking bottomless pit? But, no buts. Lone Moon turned and conjured a seal to open the door. Just as he was about to enter, Chef suddenly reached out and stopped him. Father Nyo. What? Lone Moon was still angry. He directly glared at him. Still trying to trick him? As Chef dug out the food for Shin-ing, he replied calmly, Assistant's seal. Lone Moon was stunned for a moment. Then, as if recalling something, he turned back to look at the 2 plane trees at the side. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he kept feeling that the originally short purple tree seemed to have lost its nutrients. For no reason, it felt a little listless. The plane trees won't last much longer. Chef reminded again. Shit. Only then did he seem to recall something. He replied, Got it? With that said, he turned and glared at Shin-ing. It's all your fault? Shin-ing. Meow meow meow? Oh. Lone Moon, however, walked straight back. Suddenly he reached out and grabbed Chef's collar, pulling hard. With a tearing sound, the clothes in front of Chef's chest were instantly torn apart, revealing a large area of his wheat-colored chest. Chef was caught off guard. His body swayed from the pull. "Why are you moving around?" Lone Moon said in an unfriendly tone. Chef immediately stood still. Not only did he not resist, he even moved forward a little. Xin, what the hell? Was he planting grasslands in front of her? Then should she not stop him? Or should she not stop him? On the other side, Lone Moon had already reached out to touch Chef's chest. His palm pressed on the position of his heart. He pressed hard and retracted it after a while. A white light flashed. A trace of black mark floated out from Chef's chest. It gathered in Lone Moon's palm and formed a small semicircle. It looked a little familiar, especially that familiar aura. That mark only stayed in Lone Moon's palm for a while. Then, it directly burrowed into his body. Instead, Chef at the side seemed to be hit by something. His expression was a little ugly. His body swayed and he took a few steps back. Shen Ying frowned. She reached out to help him. "What is this?" "What else can it be? The assistant seal that you gave us back then." Lone Moon set up a recovery array beside Chef. "Assistant seal?" Shen Ying hesitated. "Yours? Why was half of Lone Moon's assistant seal in Chef's body?" "It's all because you lied to me." Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her. As he activated the array, he said, "You pushed Chef and me back without saying a word. Then you sealed the plane. We were worried that something would happen to you. There was no other way. That's why we thought of transferring 2 sets of assistant seals to one person. It's better than helping you." Who knew that she would come back when they were only halfway through the transfer? A cheat was indeed a cheat. So when they just came back, they were not planting grasslands. They were transferring the assistant seal. "We are managers. Our power is connected to the plane." Lone Moon pointed at the plane tree beside him that had become energetic again. "The assistant seal cannot be transferred for too long. Otherwise, it will affect the plane." That was why he hurriedly took it back. He turned to look at Chef's expression. Seeing that he had adjusted his breathing, he then retracted the array on the ground. He turned to open the transportation tunnel. "All right, stop wasting time. Let's go back." Shen Ying's expression fell. Were they really not going to eat? Chef continued digging into his storage bag. He lowered his voice and said, "Master, I just transferred a lot of ingredients from Senior Shin's fridge. We can cook once we get back." Shen Ying's eyes lit up. She patted Yi Qing's shoulder hard. "Good, Chef." The two then followed into the transportation tunnel. Lone Moon turned back to glance at the sly master and disciple. He wanted to say something. After a while, he did not say anything. Forget it. If preaching was useful, he would not be father. He was already used to it. Thinking about it, ever since he met Shen Ying, he was a proper businessman. He actually went in the direction of lying to the gods. More importantly, he was still that father. With a woman like this, what could he do? He was also very desperate. But now that Shen Jing was a judge, at least there would not be any blind supervisors or managers who would come and invade their plane. They could finally have peace for a while. Coupled with Shen Ying's accident, they had nothing to fear. Come to think of it, the three of them had not returned to Invincible Sect for a long time. They thought that it would not take long to deal with an invader. They did not expect so many things to happen. In addition, after entering the chaos, time flowed differently. They did not know how much time had passed. Fortunately, everything was settled. It was time to go back. Tian-E must have arrived at Invincible Sect now. Invincible Sect's production of pills could double again. Enz was shumming that silly boy. He did not know if he had ascended. He still felt like he had forgotten something. Forget it. Not important. The unimportant little Biao. What happened to bringing back his scales? Didn't they say they would bring back his scales? For Alunderso, the end of the book. Chapter 703. Ever since Shen Jing sent out that notice to the entire plane, whether it was an illusion or not, the invasions of Chef or Lone Moon's plane were obviously much less. Seeing that the few of them had nothing to do, They did not stay long in Invincible Sect and returned to the Divine Realm. Lone Moon had long handed over the matters of the sect to Yu Hong and the rest. Although they refused to take over the position of sect master, in actual fact, the things they did were already no different from a sect master. It was just that the thinking of the brainless fans made them feel that only Shen Ying could be called a sect master. Lone Moon had originally planned to drag these two troublesome fellows to his own plane to help. There were no more invasions, but his plane was still a new plane. Even the Heavenly Tao had just been born not long ago. There were always some imperfections in the rules, and there were always unexpected situations waiting for him to deal with. Although Hong Meng, Fatty, and Rabbit Mushroom were quite capable, there were still some things that the manager had to do personally. Lone Moon originally thought that Chef was also a manager and could at least help a little. If he really couldn't do it, he could just copy the rules on the other side to make up the numbers. As for Shinning, forget it. But when he really started, he realized that although the two planes looked similar, there were still many differences. For example, like the sorcery system, some sorcery that could be used on the other side might not be suitable here. There would always be some differences in effect, function, or casting method. He suddenly remembered that Shinjing said that every plane was unique. It seemed that they were indeed different. The set that he originally wanted to copy and paste couldn't be used at all. He could only slowly modify it, and he could only do it himself. So when he finally had some free time, he began to busy himself again. On the other hand, Chef and a certain foodie had completely entered the mode of eating and sleeping and eating like pigs. That's right, Lone Moon was the old man being eaten. Even Chef was holed up in the kitchen all day long, either cooking or on his way to cook. The entire Divine Realm was filled with the fragrance of his cooking. That smell was simply amazing. Even Fatty, who occasionally came to report work, couldn't help but ask for an extra bowl of white rice. He silently squatted at the side and ate. This squatting, even Hong Meng, an ancient god who had been abstaining from food for God knows how long, shamelessly asked for a bowl and squatted beside Fatty. Then even Rabbit and Mushroom followed suit and asked for white rice. They squatted in an especially neat row. In the beginning he would only come once in a while, but later on he would report every day. The scene suddenly became strange. In front of Shin Ying and the other two was a table full of fragrant delicacies, while 4 people stood beside them, holding bowls of rice, drooling and eyes glowing. Perhaps Shin Ying was a little flustered by their hungry wolf-like gazes. Subconsciously she said, "Together?" "Sure." For seconds. Thus, they naturally went to the table and were given 1 or 2 vegetarian dishes. At first, Lone Moon didn't think much of it. Later on, he realized that something was wrong. Chefs had always been like feeding pigs when they cooked. Shen Ying, this foodie, was a bottomless pit. Therefore, they had to eat for at least 2 hours for each meal. 3 meals a day would take up to 6 hours. With the increase in the number of people, the time for meals would naturally increase accordingly. 2 hours a day meant that they had to spend 8 hours a day eating. As a good businessman, he had always approved of the 8-hour working day. In this way, he was the only one who worked hard every day. As for the other 4 people, they only cared about eating their meals. Lone Moon felt that his entire being was not good if this went on. Thus, he forcefully canceled their meals and dragged the 4 out of the Divine Realm. He even restricted their access and allowed them to come and freeload. He turned and glared at the 2 innocent wastrels. It was fine if they didn't help, but they were even holding him back. Did they forget who was paying them for their meals? Yet the 2, nibbling on the elders' clan, didn't seem to notice. Especially Chef. With a few fewer people to feed, he spent the extra time researching new dishes. He completely forgot his identity as a sword cultivator. From time to time, he would bring new dishes for Lone Moon to try. "Father Niao, I've seen this kind of pastry in Elder Shin's plane. But Master doesn't like sweet things, so I changed it to spicy. Do you want to try it?" Lone Moon glanced at the plate in his hand. The corner of his mouth twitched. Suddenly, he wanted to stab him with his sword. "Get lost. Do you think I can't tell? Whose cake has a spicy flavor?" "Eh? This flavor doesn't work?" He had only seen it once. "You're good. Try it yourself." Oh! Only then did I Ching put away the cake in his hand with a look of disappointment. With a turn of his hand, a flame ignited and instantly burned the cake clean. Lone Moon, damn it! He didn't even dare to try it himself. That's why he gave it to him. That's definitely it. Fu *K, chef had already turned around and started to work on the various ingredients on the baking table again. His expression was relaxed and happy. He was just short of humming a little tune. Moreover, compared to before, his expression lacked the natural sense of vigilance. Perhaps it was because there weren't any invasions during this period and the plane was stable, he was really too relaxed. He didn't have any sense of danger at all. Lone Moon looked down at himself, who was exhausted. Then, he turned to look at a certain person who was slumped on the chair like mud. He couldn't help but want to find trouble. Chef, it's not appropriate for you to be so relaxed, right? Chef had just picked up the pot when he paused. He said in confusion, but there are no invaders now. There's Shorty watching over the plane. There's nothing to be nervous about. What's more, Elder Shin is a judge. There probably won't be any problems in the future. There shouldn't be anyone stupid enough to take the initiative to bump into them, right? Oh! Lone Moon picked up a pastry from the stove and stuffed it into his mouth. What about you and Shining? Don't you have any plans? Master? He turned back to look at Shining, who was sitting on the chair outside. His gaze softened. He turned into a dog food machine, throwing out dog food. As long as Master is by my side, I have nothing else to ask for. Lone Moon suddenly felt that the pastry in his hand was a little stuffed. He subconsciously covered his eyes. Damn it, he wanted to burn them to death. He scanned Chef from head to toe and couldn't help but remind him, I'm asking you, when do you plan to settle down with Shining? Based on your current situation, are you sure you can get past Sister Jing? His face turned snow-white. The hand holding the pot trembled and it fell with a clang. Even the true phoenix fire below went out with a bang. Holy shit! Don't tell me you just remembered this now? You couldn't even beat Shin Jing when she was a monitor. Are you sure you can beat her now? Why are you looking at me? I can't help it. You know how Shin Jing is a siscon. She'll definitely beat you to death. Don't be like this. It's useless no matter how many circles you draw on the ground. Shut up. Why are you holding the sword? Holy shit, let go of me. I don't want to be a training partner for a pervert like you. Damn it, he shouldn't have exposed him. Chapter 704. Compared to Lone Moon's new plane, Invincible Sect really had nothing to worry about. Yu Hong and the others who had joined the sect the earliest had all become exalted immortals. Especially Siyu. Although she was shy, she had the highest level of enlightenment among all the disciples. Naturally, her cultivation was also the strongest. She had successfully ascended to become a young emperor, and was even close to becoming an immortal emperor. In addition, she was a body cultivator. Even if she were to compete with the celestial emperors of the various continents, she would be able to fight them. As for Tian Yi, who had just ascended not long ago, he did not know if it was luck that the continent he ascended to was in the Bo Sea. With the disciple token that Lone Moon gave him, he actually found his way to the invincible heavenly palace. Since he only focused on alchemy, Yu Hong assigned him to Boss Lan and the Drifter. She asked him to learn alchemy from the two of them. After all, he had just ascended, and his alchemy skills in the lower domain were no longer useful. He had to learn all over again. Fortunately, Invincible Sect lacked everything except immortal herbs. In addition, he was indeed a natural alchemy cultivator, so he improved rapidly. Boss Lan was very pleased. After teaching him twice, he directly threw some low-level elixir recipes and orders to him to practice. Tian Yi was a little nervous about this at first. After all, no matter how low-level elixirs were, the ingredients were all immortal herbs. Moreover, he was an earth immortal who had just ascended. He could not be too wasteful. Until he was refining a furnace of first-level elixirs and the furnace exploded more than 10 times. He thought he would be punished, but Master Lan turned and threw him a key to the immortal herb storeroom. Here, go and get the immortal herbs yourself. I can't be bothered to give them to you every time. Then, with a nonchalant expression, he turned and followed the immortal called Radish out with the pot to water the plants. Tiani felt extremely guilty. After thinking about it, he still told Master Drifter about this. He felt uneasy about wasting so many immortal herbs. Moreover, when he came looking for them, he had asked around. Invincible Sect was the heavenly palace of the celestial emperor of the entire Bow Sea continent. After the celestial emperor of the Bow Sea took office, he had never recruited disciples from outside. Moreover, he joined Invincible Sect because of the jade token that Lone Moon gave him. Although he did not know why Brother Lone Moon had it, he could not implicate him. Upon hearing this, the drifter took out a dandelion-like fairy plant and stuffed it into his hands mysteriously, saying, "Why don't you try adding this to the ingredients? It can increase the success rate of making pills, and I'm sure the furnace won't explode." She added, "Just don't let Radish see it." Tian-E. No, he was here to ask for forgiveness, not to increase the success rate of pill formation. Moreover, the stalk of immortal herb in his hand was a peak-grade immortal herb. It looked even more precious than the ones in the back mountain. Why did he casually take it out for him to refine a Tier 1 immortal pill? How can you be so wasteful? Tian-E had no choice but to report this matter to the managing elder, Elder Immortal Yu Hong. She was the eldest senior sister of the sect and was in charge of the entire sect. It would not be wrong to report to her first. Indeed, Elder Yu Hong frowned after hearing this. She subconsciously tapped her fingers on the table a few times. After thinking for a while, she glanced at Tian-E again. After a while, she took out another key and handed it to him. She said, "There are indeed too few low-level immortal herbs in the sect's storage. Why don't you use the 4th or 5th level ones first? If you really can't do it, the 6th or 7th level ones will do too." With that said, she stuffed the key into his hands. Tiani, huh? No, he was not complaining about the immortal herbs. He was not here to ask for immortal herbs. Did you guys get the point wrong? Junior brother Tian-E, all the best. Before he could finish, Yu Hong patted his shoulder and said earnestly, "Learn to refine pills well. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask Boss Lon. He has plenty of time." "No, Elder, listen to my explanation. Don't worry. Although our sect is poor, I will ask the disciples to look for the low-level immortal herbs you need from Celestial Emperor Biao. We will definitely have enough." "No, I'm really not here to ask for immortal herbs. Let's do it. The sect's storage of immortal stones is already not enough. 200%. Why don't we expand our sales to the demonic realm?" "Stop it. What happened to the saying that immortals and demons could not coexist?" Wait a minute. Why did he feel that the way Elder Yu Hong earned money looked so familiar? Yet he could not remember. But from then on, Tian-E finally understood. To the immortals of the various continents, the immortal herbs that were treasures were nothing in their invincible sect. As a money-burning pill cultivator, he was already used to lacking ingredients for a long time. The feeling of getting rich overnight was too shocking. He felt that he needed a long time to get used to it. But before Tian-E could get used to it, in less than a month, Invincible Sect welcomed a newcomer. 2 bucks were finally ascended. Time flowed differently in the immortal realm and the lower realm. Although only a month had passed in the upper realm, thousands of years had passed in the lower realm. And 2 bucks did not ascend alone. When he ascended, he brought along the publicly acknowledged good demon who had stayed in Gui sect for thousands of years and refused to leave, Little Mo-san. Ever since Shin Ing and the others left, Little Mo-san did not dare to get up. At first, the people of Gui sect were a little afraid. After all, he was a demon and a sky fiend at that. But after a while, they realized that he seemed to grow there. He did not move at all. Gui sect slowly let down their guard. But he carried demonic chi. Although he did not attack, it still affected the surrounding environment. At first, only the flowers and plants within a few feet of him withered. Slowly, it affected all the spirit herbs on the entire floating peak. Not a single blade of grass grew within a few miles. The Gui sect master was about to cry. They were a pill cultivator sect. So what if they could not grow spirit herbs? But no matter how others tried to persuade him, he refused to get up. The look in his eyes said, "Don't you think you can lie to a smart demon like me?" And he knelt for more than 100 years. The spirit herbs in the sect were almost all dying. Swa, who was already a nascent soul, could not help but trick him. "I say, little San, you can't keep kneeling here. A compassionate person like Miss Shun would definitely want to see you help more people and do more good deeds. Who knows, she might be happy and forgive you." "Really?" Little Mo-san hesitated. He was a little tempted. Swa continued to trick him a few more times. Only then did he get up doubtfully. From then on, he really followed Swa and did good deeds to uphold justice. Perhaps because of his identity as a demon, he played a very good role in leading the way. Once he did good deeds, even those evil fiendish cultivators in the past began to slowly turn over a new leaf. After all, the demon race was the ultimate goal of all fiendish cultivators. They needed to do good deeds. That proved that their previous cultivation methods were wrong. Therefore, under Little Mo-san's leadership, the cultivators of the orthodox and fiendish sects who were originally like fire and water actually began to communicate and work together. The two sects were unexpectedly harmonious. Until Zhou Shuyuan ascended, there were no major conflicts. To prevent Little Mo-san from being tricked by him and kneeling back to Gei sect to harm those spirit herbs, Zhou also brought him up to the upper realm when he ascended. Little Mo-san also brought Zhou to Invincible sect. He said that he was going to ask for forgiveness from the gods. In the thousands of years of cultivation in the lower realm, Zhou did not go astray. He was still an upright sword cultivator. The moment Yu Hong saw him, she knew that he was taught by Elder Lone Moon. She directly let him into the sect and even threw him to her juniors to train. And he was an earth immortal. Coincidentally, the disciples were lacking sparring partners. As he trained, his cultivation increased. Sword cultivators should be very durable, right? Swa, wait, senior sister. I don't have an immortal sword yet. Can you give me a sword before we start fighting? Cut the crap. Fight. Senior brother, I'm just an earth immortal. Even a sword cultivator can't take a full blow from a mystic immortal. Put down your sandbag-sized fist. It's okay, junior brother. You won't die. Senior sister, what are you doing? I can't beat you even if you don't transform. I'm respecting my opponent. Wait, don't help. $2 started to seriously doubt his life. Especially when he saw Tian-yi, who was perfectly fine. All he had to do was squat in the alchemy room with a 5th-level immortal herb in his left hand and an 8th-level immortal lotus in his right. He even had the urge to escape to the lower realm. Speaking of which, was it too late to change to a pill cultivator now? The correct chapter of Master Disconnected Again will continue to be updated on Green Bean Novel website. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend it to Green Bean Novel website. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.